Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter, and this week on the show, we are talking about UFC Mexico City. It is going down at the Arena Ciudad de Mexico, and we are looking at Brandon Moreno in the main event. He's taking on Steve Astroboy Erceg, and what a difference a day makes in the UFC. We had Steve Erceg come in as an underdog against David Dvorak, unannounced, wins, gets right into the top 10, and now he's staring down the barrel of a two-fight losing streak after fighting for the title, after coming so close to winning it. This is a sport that is fickle, and we know that everything can change with just one fight. So we have a lot of great fights to break down this week, 13 as a matter of fact, and you know that we got a great guest to do it with once again. Want to just say the scheduling conflicts and everything all on my end, guys. Last night, crippling headache, wanted to do the show, could not make the walk. This week, we've got our nice iced coffee brewed, ready to rumble. We've got our West Coast brother, Wizz MMA, in the back, ready to rumble as well. So without further ado, guys, let's introduce our guest and let's get into the fights. Wizz, how are you, my man? Welcome back.
My guys, always glad to be here again. Liam, thank you for having me on. And everybody, thank you for the constant support and asking me to come back. We're coming off of a huge week. Swept the card, 9.54 units. And back, the highlight for me, back-to-back weeks where we both agree on this, on the same take, on underdogs where we plant our flag. The week before it was Chitty Bang, and then last week it was Holland. So all I gotta say is we gotta keep this ball rolling. It doesn't have to be an underdog, but it'll be nice if it's underdog. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, brother. We're gonna have to bring up your results here and show them as well as we get rolling, because that's an absolutely sensational card. But that makes two of us, my brother, because if you remember last week, I kept it simple, I kept it small. I went with just two bets. I had the fight not to go the distance plus 155, as well as the ends by submission at plus 340 for that Molly McCann and Alexa Tainara fight. And what we call that is quick work. We get in, we get our bag fast, less than one round of activity, and then we take all the coins and go home. And we did a lot of live betting as well last week. Chitty Bang at every number you can imagine, and the under 2.5 live at plus 160. I'm like, my man's not even trying to shoot takedowns. Somebody's going to die. So yeah, it just seemed to me like there was a lot of opportunities. Knock on wood, we'll see the same thing this week. We didn't see a lot of knockouts last week. I will say the one devastating loss for me, I had Pooja Tomar live at an insane number, plus 4XX, whatever. She knocks her out and then submits herself. Unbelievable. I thought that Bannon's sub was too mushed. I had it in my document. I was like, man, this is a great position, 18-1. Massive number. And I was like, man, I just can't get there. Shauna Bannon is so bad. She lost the armbar. Guys, make no mistake. You can go back and watch. She loses the armbar and Pooja goes, nah, we're doing it again. Puts it right back in, finishes herself. Unbelievable. But in any case, it was a fun card. But I always say, the bookie's not going to pay you for the work that you did last week. So it's right back to work for this week. And let us quickly take a look at what we're dealing with in the first fight of the night. So we're going to go using Tapology. Take a look. We got Austin Thud Hubbard here taking on Markel Medeiros. And I got to admit to you, Wiz, this is a fight that I taped today for the prelim preview article that I write for Roto Grinders. I just got that turned in earlier this evening. And when I look at a fight like this, man, I'm not an Austin Hubbard guy. I'm in some ways what you call the furthest thing from an Austin Hubbard guy. I think he's unexceptional at everything. However, when you look at the other side here, I'm not sold on Markel Medeiros yet. Watching back his fight with Landon Quinones, what did I not like? The optics, first and foremost. There's a lot of times he's like running backwards, like turning around, like doing things that are very green. And you could tell that he's potent offensively at times. You could see there's times he'll land a 1-2 in combination, looks very clean, a couple of shots together. You could see the striking tact that he has. But on the other side of things, it's like, what do I not like about his game? It's clunky. I think his distance management is poor at this stage of his career. I think it's getting a little bit better, but kind of watching him operate sometimes, like he crowds his own work. He'll clinch himself when he doesn't need to. Almost reminds me of a Christian Leroy Duncan in that way. Some of his problems in the UFC. That's kind of what I saw from Medeiros against Quinones. Quinones need I remind folks, is 0-2 now in the UFC. Not a bad fighter, but hasn't proven that he's a UFC level guy to this stage. And on the other side, Austin Hubbard, a guy who's basically had, a tough run out in the UFC. You look at a lot of the guys he's fought, they're quality opponents. So the guys that haven't been quality, he's mostly dealt with accordingly. And he's had guys who are, in my humble opinion, as serious a prospect like a Max Roscoff, second guessing his whole career decision to do fighting as a profession because he was continuing to apply that pressure. And Austin Hubbard, what he does not have is like huge standout skills or like one attribute that's like, man, this guy's amazing. I think his jiu-jitsu is honestly a liability as well against high-level guys. But Medeiros has no subs, pro or amateur, right? You look at where is he, head and shoulders above Austin Hubbard in the striking. It's like the guy didn't land a ton of strikes against Quinones. He absorbed some strikes on the comeback. He looked awkward in some moments. Honestly, the decision could have went either way. So it's like that for me wasn't like a, man, take it to the bank. This guy, the next breakout star in the UFC. And meanwhile, on the other side, what we know about Austin is if you don't submit him, he's going to fight you hard for 15 minutes. He's going to continue trying to push that gas pedal down. And that's basically what he's got going for him. So I think that in this kind of fight at elevation against a guy who's got no experience, who's really trying to make a big step forward in his career against a much more experienced opponent. Keep in mind, again, Landon Quinones, 2 fights in the UFC. Didn't win either of them, but only 2 fights. Austin Hubbard, he's a 10-fight veteran. He's been around for a long time. He's been in some of those wars as well that have gone deep. 15 minutes could have gone either way. And so if it's going to be that kind of fight, it feels like a dog or pass situation. The final pick I gave in the article, Austin Hubbard by split decision, and don't feel great about it. Obviously, a split decision doesn't mean it's going to be a clear, decisive win, but could he go out there and compete hard for 15 minutes, make this an honest fight just like Landon Quinones did, and come away with the victory? I think he can. So for me, it's Austin Hubbard or pass, and probably a pass because I don't really believe in Austin Hubbard. But how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I'm staying as far away from this fight as I can for multiple reasons. So we look at Austin Hubbard coming back from the not Contender Series, from Ultimate Fighter. He doesn't really excel in any area of martial arts. The one thing that I like about Hubbard is the guy is tough. Like, he will push a pace on you. He will stay in front of you, and sure, he can get hit a lot, but the one thing that you can count on is his durability. And then on the other hand, Markel Medeiros, I think against Quinones, maybe you can say that he suffered a little bit from the bright lights. It was his debut, but Quinones is a decent boxer, I will say, in the, not UFC caliber, but he can box. And the one thing that it showed was Medeiros is very hittable. In a fight against a UFC vet like Austin Hubbard, if you're hittable, then you're going to make this fight close. Austin Hubbard's going to be pressuring, and he's going to be able to land. So it's just a matter of who throws the more volume, and both these guys are very low volume. Medeiros really likes to pick his shots and look clean, and he throws singular shots or like 1-2s down the middle. Doesn't really piece up a lot of combos. So that's one thing that I would have loved to see if I wanted to back Medeiros. Now that the line's coming in a little bit, I know a lot of people who are interested on the Medeiros side just for the fact that he's 5 years younger. Measurables are pretty much the same, but more on the come up, higher career trajectory compared to Austin Hubbard. But at the same time, when you have a vet like Austin Hubbard who's going to walk you down and he's going to stay there for 15 minutes, it's going to be hard. The only bet that I was willing to even consider in this fight was fight ends and split. So it's funny that you mentioned Austin Hubbard by split. So we kind of aligned there. But I'm staying away from this fight with a 10-foot pole. I would rather just, watch for enjoyment or maybe get a late start to the card. So for me to pass, I'll lean the Medeiros side just due to the youth. And I could maybe see him making improvements and on that first performance in the UFC, because we've seen it time and time again. I mean, you look at a guy like Carlos Prates, who people think the world of right now. In his first fight in the UFC, in his debut against Officer Giles, he was losing that fight until he knocked him out, and he lost the first 2 rounds. So I think that is a real thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Markel looks 10 times better here, but I'm staying away.
Yeah, the problem I have with this is I look at 33 versus 28. It's not a massive difference in age. Yes, it is a difference. You want to keep it in mind, but is 33 washed in the lightweight division. I mean, almost every top lightweight right now is in their mid 30s, right? So for me, it feels like Hubbard's in a fine place in his career. I don't think he's taken too much damage that he's washed or passed it or anything in competitive fights last time out. And he's the slightly bigger guy as well. You know, they noted in Medeiros' last fight on Contender, like he looked a little bit smaller than Landon in some of the exchanges. And that's something that I wanted to keep in mind here is like, we haven't seen these guys weigh in. We haven't seen them face off. This is one where I will be watching that. If Austin looks like the bigger guy, it's going to be another factor that kind of pushes me in that direction. So ultimately, this is a fight we can move on from, but it's a fight where I think that it's a live underdog situation. Oh, my dog just sneezed in the background, so that seems like a good omen for underdog backers as well. All right. Next up, guys, we got Jamal Emmers taking on Gabriel Miranda. And I pointed out today was, you know, Jamal Emmers' wins in the UFC have aged like sour milk. Aside from that, you know, he does have good skills. I think everybody's going to talk about that this week, but not a spring chicken. You know, these guys are the same age, a little bit older actually on the Jamal Emmers side. And, you know, the Pat Sabatini fight is for me emblematic of why you can never trust Jamal Emmers. He could be winning a fight, even looking like he's on the verge of finishing a fight and make catastrophic decisions that cost him the fight. So ultimately, that's my handicap of this fight. I'll never trust Jamal Emmers with $1. I like the unders. I think somebody's going to get finished in this fight. So yeah, that's the way I see it. What about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, very similar take here. I think Jamal Emmers is the much more skilled fighter here. The much more skilled fighter. Through and through, I mean, whether it's in the grappling, whether it's in the striking, I really like the skill set that Jamal Emmers brings to the cage. But the biggest downfall, and this will be the biggest downfall for any fighter, is the fight IQ. If you're going to throw yourself into the fire every single time you get touched just because you want to get one back, you're bound to get knocked out. You're bound to get hurt and make mistakes. And Jamal Emmers, time and time again, has shown that the inability, for lack of better words, to keep his head in the game and fight smart. Now, when you look at Gabriel Miranda, I just got to say, man, I think he's sub-1 or bust. This guy gets hurt in a lot of his fights and most of his fights. And if I remember correctly, when I was taping this guy hasn't won a fight outside of the first round. Let me go back to his record to be 100% sure here. No, he has a submission by armbar in round 2, but everything else, 2 subs in round 2. The rest are all round 1. So you just cannot trust Gabriel Miranda if this fight doesn't turn into a grappling match. And Jamal Emmers might just give him a grappling match. We just never know. What if he just takes him down from the opening bell and people parlaying Jamal Emmers are burning their tickets and ripping him up, just saying, what is he doing? What is he doing? Because on the feet, Jamal Emmers can do whatever and I mean this, he can do whatever he wants to Gabriel Miranda. And I predict a round 1 knockout for Jamal Emmers as long as he keeps his head in the game. And can we count on that? No. Much better fighter, but in terms of IQ, you just can't pull the trigger. So stay far away. Do not parlay Jamal Emmers, but I'm by no means am I saying play Gabriel Miranda. If you wanted to take a stab, try the sub-1. But I think that's all, I want to say, most of his win equity.
If you look on the regional scene, that's actually where Jamal Emmers did his best work. You know, he's 35 years of age now. I think he kind of got to the UFC a little bit post-prime. We are talking about a featherweight. We are talking about, you know, a guy whose some of his best wins are over bantamweights like Corey Sandhagen. But if you look back, he also beat Alexander Hernandez before Hernandez got to the UFC. So Jamal Emmers fought a tough regional schedule. That's why he gets a lot of respect at the window. But let's talk about his UFC wins. He beat Hussein Askabov 0-1 in the UFC. He beat Vince Cachero 0-3 in the UFC. Hussein Askabov. Yeah, that's why he's not 0-2 in the UFC. Yeah, exactly. Hussein Askabov would have been 0-2 in the UFC if he wasn't committing felonies. And then when you look at the other win for Jamal Emmers, I'm thinking to myself right now, it was Dennis Bazooka via knockout. And, we like Dennis Bazooka, New York guy, but he's 1-3 in the promotion. So the combined win rate is like 1 and not a lot of wins, right, for the opposition. And meanwhile, who is Jamal Emmers losing to? Nate Landwehr, a winnable fight for Jamal. He goes out there, and when he should be, maybe leveraging his grappling, maybe leveraging his speed, his agility, his footwork, his ability to box from the outside. He's getting into a pocket brawl with Nate Landwehr, which is the exact fight Nate wants, and he gets absolutely splattered. So again, you got to question the decision making. The Jack Jenkins fight, that's a questionable decision that could have went either way. That's the story of Jamal's career, not doing quite enough, letting a decision slip through his fingers. He did the exact same thing against Giga Chikadze. So do I expect any of those outcomes against Miranda? No. But when you're talking about why do you not trust Jamal Emmers, it's the many reasons he's given you not to trust him. I already talked about the Sabatini fight. Guys, everybody in the casino, I was there. Right? Everybody in the casino is going bananas. Oh my God, he's going to win the fight. It's so easy money. And then meanwhile, I cash the Sabatini inside the distance plus 500 a few seconds later after he grabs a hold of his foot and starts twisting. It's like this guy gets into a heel hooking exchange with Pat Sabatini while Pat is nearly unconscious. It's like, that's not a great demonstration. And he, by the way, got his knee completely destroyed in that fight. So could you attribute some of his slowdown in his career to that? I do think it's a factor. I don't think Gabriel Miranda is very dangerous outside of the first 7.5 minutes. But in those first 7.5 minutes, if my memory serves, I have to go back and retape this fight. I haven't done that yet. I've taped a lot of fights this week, not this one yet. But I believe Miranda hurt Benoit Saint-Denis in the first round and then went for a submission attempt and then got killed. If my memory is playing out correctly. So the guy is a dangerous enough fighter. He just can't sustain it. And it's like Jamal Emmers, the one thing we know, he's not Benoit Saint-Denis in terms of the toughness and general durability, in my humble opinion, that we've seen from the other side. And meanwhile, Shane Young, he treated him accordingly. That guy's 2-5 in the UFC. He finished him in the first round. I predicted he would finish him in the first round. Morgan Charrier, everybody was just talking about the benefits of Morgan Charrier, how he's such a good fighter last week. And now everybody's down on him. It's like, well, we got to pick a story and stick to it. I think he's a good fighter. I think Nathaniel Wood is a better fighter who's more seasoned and just went out there and had a better fight on the night. Maybe it's competitive in a rerun, but one guy got hurt in that fight. And I mentioned Nathaniel Wood gets hurt, but he hurts people. He's got power in his hands, man. He's knocked down a lot of people in the UFC. And a lot of times he gets knocked down, then knocks somebody down. It's like, okay, now we look at Morgan Charrier. He hurts Gabriel Miranda. He puts him away. For me, that is a slight red flag. And it's, again, why I love the unders here. Because, that's not a great finisher. That's not a guy that's prolific for putting people away. He's fighting the close decisions with most guys that are on the level. And Gabriel Miranda wasn't really on the level. Granted, it was a setup fight. They brought him over to Paris. But I think that both these guys, huge flaws, huge vulnerabilities. Somebody go out there and make a huge categorical mistake. Get yourself finished in the first 3 minutes. I'll be a happy man. I think that's the way I'll look to target this fight. Anything you want to add before we move to the next one, Wiz?
Yeah, I think the unders earlier at minus 170. This was Monday, Tuesday. Those are great prices because it was under 2.5. I really thought this was going to open under 1.5 at evens. So getting under 2.5 at minus 170 was great. So whoever got that, props.
I'm seeing plus on the under 1.5 as well. Honestly, I think that's probably good, but I think maybe this is a stackable unders, under 1.5, under 2.5, ladder those up. That's kind of the way I see this one. I would be very surprised if they fight for 15 minutes.
Likewise.
The one thing I will say though is if they give me a 30-1 on Miranda decision, I've made stupider bets. I will consider that just because I've seen Jamal Emmers go out there and fumble decisions that he's it's within hand and just find a way to lose. So not a great record in decisions. I know Gabriel Miranda, not a proven decision fighter at all, but just the way I conceive of the fight, maybe they both are afraid to gas out. One guy's afraid to get knocked out. They just stand there, have a staring match for 15 minutes. That's it would have to be a massive number, but this is the way my contrarian
The one thing I will say about Gabriel Miranda, he is a proven gasser, and this fight is
at elevation.
I think the highest point of elevation in terms of fighting in the UFC.
I love it.
It is Yeah, I know everyone's going to talk about this a lot this week, and some people say that it doesn't matter. Some people say that it matters. It absolutely matters. I know it affects both fighters. The argument for people that say that it doesn't matter is that, oh, it affects both fighters. But here's the thing: when you have a fighter that is already a gasser, not at elevation, going up against someone who doesn't really tend to gas as quickly, and then you put them at elevation, not just any sort of elevation, the highest point of elevation in terms of fighting, it's going to be a bigger negative towards the fighter who gasses out a lot quicker. So it's going to happen. It's going to have to be explained in a couple of these fights. It definitely is an angle. So yeah, Gabriel Miranda likely will gas after 5 minutes, but I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
Speaking of cardio angles, maybe we have a cardio angle here with 42-year-old short notice Vince Pichel taking on Rafa Garcia. One thing I've been doing this week a lot is just listening to people's interviews. And the reason being, we're fighting at elevation. I want to know if you've been training. I want to know if you've been acclimating. I want to know what you did to prepare for this fight. And Rafa Garcia sounds like he's done everything right. You know, from his pre-preparation, he's going and doing capsule pods at the UFC Performance Institute in Vegas, where he's doing elevation simulators and all this stuff in the lead up to the fight. Then he comes out 3 weeks in advance to acclimatize. So he's been there running the mountains. He's been going to the highest points that he can, running mountains at the highest points, higher than where they're going to be fighting. So as far as I'm concerned, Rafa Garcia is one of these guys. I've been looking for this mindset, which is something I try and coach athletes to, which is no stone left unturned. Because when you have confidence, right, it comes from consistent preparation, right? When you have good cardio, it comes from confidence, right? Like as much as anything else, it comes from your self-belief in your training. Did I put in the right amount of work? Did I go in and invest? Because then you can let it all fly. When you're scared that you didn't do enough, you're going to leave some back. And I feel like a guy like Vince Pichel, you know, he's typically a guy that goes out there and tries to leave it all out there, but he's 42. He can hardly make it to the cage. The guy's inactivity is very notable. He's one of the least active guys on the modern roster. And when you look at his fights, you know, he's got a great record, man, 7-4 in the UFC, but it's been trending in the wrong direction. The guy started off all right. He's been fighting tough opposition. It's been trending the wrong direction. He has losses now in his record to guys who have since retired and been retired for a year. It's like this guy is on the wrong side of his UFC ledger. It's the bottom line. And Rafa Garcia is a guy that lost to Grant Dawson, who's 11-1-1 in the UFC. And we can't hold that against him too much, right? Losing to Chris Grutzmacher, not a great look. But when you go back and watch, this guy has had 8 UFC opponents. He's taken down 5 of them multiple times. Vince Pichel has a 25% takedown defense rate. I think he's going to give up multiple takedowns in this fight. And if he does that, I think Rafa Garcia is not going to try and submit him. I don't think he's a goof. I think he's going to try and punch a hole in his head for a duration. And the thing about it is, when Vince Pichel begins to fatigue, he does make worse decisions in the grappling. We've seen it against Gregor Gillespie and other really good fighters. I'm not putting Rafa Garcia on the level of those guys, but I'm saying Vince Pichel isn't the guy he was when he fought Gregor Gillespie all those years ago. He's a much more diminished version at 42 years of age. And personally, I think Rafa Garcia is going to get his game going here. So ultimately, I'm not a huge Rafa Garcia guy, but I loved his interview. I loved his intentionality. I loved his preparation. If you're not ready on a 5-week turnaround training camp to try and fight this guy, he's going to bring a lot of pace and energy. And we saw him go to decision with Clay Guida. He landed 146 significant strikes. Vince Pichel in his entire UFC career has never sniffed a number like that. So as far as I'm concerned, if the fight plays out on the feet, Rafa Garcia can win this on volume. If the fight plays out in terms of wrestling and grappling, I think Vince is maybe a little bit more slick and a little bit more crafty, but I think Rafa is a little bit more pace, a little bit more go, a little bit more energy. I think in rounds 2 and 3, he's going to run away with this one. And I also think there's a non-zero chance he's going to finish. I wrote up in my article decision. I might have to go addend that, like make an addendum to that, because when you look back, this guy is talking very clearly about, I'm out there to pursue a finish. I'm out there to improve my career. I'm out there to take, a statement. Like, this guy is very intentional about what he's going to do, and it's not just win the fight. So for me, that's something I do want to take into account here. This guy's coming with violent intentions. He said, I have respect for Vince Pichel, but out of respect for him, I'm going to bring him the best version of myself at 100% intensity and look for the finish. I like that. So give me Rafa Garcia, whether it's round 2, 3, or the decision. I think he's going to get this one done. What do you think, Wiz?
I've been it's been known that I'm a big Rafa Garcia truther. I bet him in his last 3 wins. And I just love betting on guys like Rafa who have shown the capability and willingness to go out there and wrestle for 15 minutes nonstop. And you're playing right into your advantage against a guy like Vince Pichel, who's been taken down over and over again in the UFC, who is 12 years older than you. When you go out in an interview and you say that I'm going to go out and take him down, basically, and hunt a finish, that's exactly what you want to hear. I'm just going to keep this short. I think Rafa is a good parlay piece. I think Rafa inside the distance is good. Let me see what the unders are priced at here. Under 2.5 at plus 260.
Dude, the fight doesn't go the distance. Is plus 215. I mean,
yeah, you got to take a bite there. At plus 250 unders or plus 210 for fight doesn't go. That's just
2 and 3 is 1,000 and 1,400 as well.
If you're looking at Rafa sub 2-3, let's just take a look at the numbers. I think it was something like plus 1,900 and plus 2,100. That is what I'm playing. But my fear is obviously for him to go for ground and pound.
20 and 28 I'm seeing right now is best available.
Rafa
on FanDuel.
Okay, yeah. See, you're lucky with FanDuel. On BetOnline, sub round 2 plus 1,800, and then sub round 3 plus 2,000. Yeah.
Wow. So it's actually it's better EV on the round 3.
And I would still play that. Just to, throw it out there.
Yep, I tend to agree with you.
Absolutely.
Well, I will think long and hard about the round 2 and 3 absent method, because I do just think it's such a cardio read, right? Like short notice, 42 years of age, normally a tough son of a gun, so it's not going to be easy, right? But it probably could manifest later on in the fight. I probably won't get cute and take 10 and 14 and knock on wood and hope for the best.
Yeah, and when you look at the guy, and he's been training in Mexico, I believe it's been the past 6 to 7 weeks. So he's been out there and he's prepared for the elevation. Whereas Vince Pichel is on short notice. I don't know when he got to Mexico, so I'm not gonna throw out just the wrong number here. But
I haven't heard his interviews yet. I will report back.
That's gonna be something that I probably will do right after this show. It's just all the more in terms of reasons to back Rafa and Rafa by finish. So give me Rafa here with conviction, parlay piece, sub, inside the distance, whatever you want.
There you have it. On to the next one, guys. We're going to have our boy Wiz lead us off. Julia Polastri taking on Lupita Godinez. Women's fight, big implications. Lupi taking a step down after a 2-fight skid, right? Where she had some opportunities, some big steps up. Now got to defend her spot in the rankings against a hungry Julia Polastri. How do you see this one going down, Wiz?
Yeah, so we look at, a lot of people do favor Lupi Godinez in this fight. Some well-respected guys in the space that I know do like Lupi here and think that she can get the takedowns. And I do think she can get the takedowns here. I think she can land them. But the one common theme with Lupi is, and in Lupi fights, is that she fights really close. She lands the takedowns, but she doesn't have the greatest control. She gets them again, and then she doesn't have the greatest control and lets them back up. Her cardio starts to fade as the fight goes on. The one thing you can count on with Julia is that the cardio will be there, and she looks to be in incredible shape. She is ripped to the bone, and the fight against Josephine Knudsen, even though she lost, she showed that she's able to get up from takedowns. And the one thing I really like about Julia is that she will put the pressure on in the striking, and Lupi gets hit a lot. And Liam, you can speak to this a little bit more than I can because you're the way more decorated grappler and wrestler. But when you're on the back foot, it's a lot harder to shoot takedowns and land takedowns. So if Julia is going to be the girl pressing in the striking here and landing the better shots and having Lupi on the back foot, it's going to be a ton more difficult to land these takedowns and to time them. So I think Julia is going to be able to out pressure Lupi in this fight. I think Julia is going to be able to land the better shots and the harder shots. She's just like she's shot out of a cannon when it comes to the striking. At plus 240, I had to take a shot with one unit. So for me, I think Julia Polastri outlasts Lupi Godinez, and I think we might even get a better number come fight day because people are going to parlay up Lupi Godinez like they always do. So give me, I was about to say give me Lupi. Give me Julia Polastri by decision here.
My man, I'm glad that you said that. And where's my dog when I need to sneeze? I think Julia Polastri is a live underdog in this spot. Although I'm going to give one little, difference in my opinion, right? If you look at Julia's prediction for this fight, she said she thinks she's going to submit Lupi Godinez. And I thought that was a very interesting prediction by her. She said, I'm going to look to go out there and strike. And she knows that. And she said, I know that she's going to come in and try and wrestle with me. I'm fully aware of that. When you look at Lupi Godinez, I think that most of her problems in terms of decision-making are on the ground, are in grappling exchanges from her UFC debut against Jessica Penne, where she's giving up the back to a fighter that is physically not on her level, to her more recent fights where she's engaging, much like Jamal Emmers, in needless leg lock exchanges with superior credentialed grapplers. And when you look at the training camp, right, you expected, I think, coming into this fight, Lupi Godinez, who's been training in Mexico, to continue training in Mexico. That seems to make a lot of sense in the lead up to this fight. She's been training in Canada. And I think that maybe that's to go back and embrace her wrestling roots. If you guys are aware, she has a sister that's on the Canadian women's junior national wrestling team and all these things. So I think that's part of the reason that she went back. But I just don't know whether I like that move for her. I think that when you look at what we've seen from Lupi Godinez in the UFC, we've seen several times she's been a big favorite, like against Angela Hill. And against Angela, I mean, frankly, Angela still has a losing record in the promotion despite her skills and despite her improvements over time. And we know that her takedown defense has been a liability at times. We saw Mackenzie Dern taking her down with side headlocks and stuff even recently. And when you look at how that fight played out, she left it very, very close. She didn't assert herself in that way. We've seen her go out there and beat two fighters, I believe, in the UFC with winning records, fighters that are quality, fights that are meaningful for Lupi Godinez. She's grown up in front of the UFC audience. They've given her a lot of layups, a lot of easier fights along the way to build her name and her reputation. But that's the kind of fighter that she's been beating decisively. Otherwise, she's fighting close. Even the Tabitha Ricci fight, split decision. It's like, this is a girl that is going out there and having competitive moments with a lot of people, and not a lot of women, I think, offer a physical match to Lupi Godinez. And I don't know that Polastri is going to fully match her physicality, but I do think she's not afraid of her physicality like a lot of women are. I think she's going to bring it to her. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind, Julia Polastri is young. When she first arrived on the scene, she was very, very young, and she was fighting close with Jasmine Jasudavicius. Yeah, she got outworked in that fight. Yeah, she ran out of steam. By the way, that was a fight at 125. Jasmine Jasudavicius is now 7-2 in the UFC and one fight away from a title opportunity. So when we talk about Julia Polastri and how she's done in the UFC, yeah, it's been a little hit and miss, right? She's fought good girls. Josephine Knudsen isn't out of the UFC because she's bad. She's out of the UFC because she's boring. I believe she's out of the UFC. I could be wrong about that. I'll fact check myself. But I believe I saw a post that she had been cut from the promotion. But in any case, she lost to Piera Rodriguez, who had more experience than her, was a little bit more physical. Otherwise, she was on a decent run. I think she had 1-2 fights with the promotion. So you look at where Polastri's at. I think that she has skills in all positions. I think she's a dangerous fighter. She comes with the ability to hurt women on the feet, right? To land damaging shots with elbows and knees. She does that off her back as well. So if she's on her back, if she does get taken down in this fight, Is Lupi going to distance herself by landing a lot of ground and pound, passing the guard, making it dominant control positions? Maybe she will, but maybe it will be Polastri who holds her in the guard, lands some serious elbows, cuts her open, and Lupi decides, you know what, maybe I don't want to be in the guard anymore, and stands back up out of it. So I think that Polastri has opportunities to land from everywhere. But here's the other thing. I think Polastri is going to be offensive from her back in more ways than one. I think she will throw up submission attempts. And I do think Lupi has a decent ability to maneuver. We've seen her go against good girls and not get submitted. But the one thing we haven't seen is somebody that mixes the martial arts. And I think Lupi Godinez can be pressured. I do not think she likes to be pressured. I think she likes to bully people, back them up, use her power. And I think that she's going to be in some positions where she's uncomfortable in this fight, where she gets backed up, where she gets put in the clinch. She might take a shot that she regrets, right? Where she puts her neck in a bad spot, or she shoots from too far away, or she ends up getting armbarred from guard, which is classic WMMA. So as far as I'm concerned, man, I saw a 50-1 on Polastri to win this fight via submission. I thought that was disrespectful. So I bet that, and that's a small position I have on this fight. I'll probably have Polastri money line, waiting to see what the apex of that line will be. But ultimately, this is a fight where I think it's a dog or pass situation. And I think Godinez has not been very fruitful as a favorite. And meanwhile, Julia Polastri, I think, has a lot of upside in her career, still just 27 years of age. So is this a little too much too soon? I don't know, but they both have the same amount of professional fights. The only difference is Lupi's been doing it in front of UFC fans, so she has more supporters at the window, but Polastri's been working in silence. She fought a tough fight against Jesuda Vicious that most people missed. And, since then, got a win, beat Corey McKenna, who was essentially fighting for her job and not a bad fighter and not a bad grappler. So overall, I just think Polastri is going to continue to make improvements. And at 27, with her aggression, with her confidence and tenacity, I think she's going to fight hard for the dollar. So ultimately, that's what I'm looking for in a dog.
With her nickname, Psycho? Come on now.
Yes, sir. Give me the more violent girl, Julia Polastri. Next up, we got Melquizael Costa taking on Christian Rodriguez. And this is a fight where I know Christian Rodriguez has been doing his work in Mexico, did his entire camp down south of the border, and seems very confident in the work that he's put in. I really like the mindset, the attitude, the energy from this kid. But I've said it a million times. I like betting on this guy as an underdog. I like when I get those opportunities because he's going to be solid everywhere. He's going to fight hard for your money. But have we seen him kind of pull a stunt or fumble the bag a little bit before? Yeah, we did. In the Julian Erosa fight, he goes out there, he's looking for the knockout early. He's over swinging. He's a talented guy, but he fought without composure that night. He fought like a young man that night, and it kind of got him exposed, right? He went for some bad forced takedowns, let's call it, and put himself in some bad spots. We've actually seen him in a couple of uncomfortable situations like that in the UFC, and he's very stingy with his submission defense, typically speaking. But eventually, if you keep putting your neck in bad situations, that bill will come due and somebody will tap you. So I think that is something that we have to worry about with C-Rod. Extremely talented guy, but puts himself in some exchanges on the feet where I think that in this fight against Melk, maybe that could cost him, just because Melk is a guy that's swinging with kicks, that's looking to do damage, that's got, potent offense. But overall, when I'm trying to evaluate skills, when I'm trying to evaluate talent, I think Christian Rodriguez is a sensational fighter. I think that there's a lot of really impressive things that he does where you watch his fights from when he was 18, when he was a kid. This guy was always that guy, poised under pressure. You could take my back. I'll find a way to get back up, get back to my feet, put some pressure back on you, make you feel the fight. And I think that he's just an impressive guy. When you look at Mel Costa, he's had a great run in terms of bouncing back in the UFC, lost to I'm drawing a blank. Thiago Moises in his first UFC fight, got submitted in that fight. I expected that, but he actually had some good resistance. I did not expect that level of resistance from him. So I was like, man, you got to take note of this kid. Then you see the Austin Lingo fight, complete letdown. Like, who is this guy? You're not even finishing Austin Lingo, going out there and kind of letting him off the hook when he was hurt. It really was a, baffling performance, to say the least. And especially when you consider in hindsight the tougher guys that he has finished in the interim, right? No disrespect to Austin Lingo, just guys that are more proven at the UFC level. And I think that Melk is a guy that's getting more comfortable inside the octagon, but he goes, from fighting a couple weeks ago to getting right back in there. And in my opinion, Feely was having success on the feet. He was doing just fine. And, Melk was like, starting to land back a little bit. He's like, all right, let me mix in my takedowns. And just did not seem like he was respecting the ground game at all. Did not seem like he made any attempt to pass, to defend, to flat back, to really do anything that you would expect a adult professional to do, in a fighting context when they're getting choked. So for me, that was just a baffling performance from Feely. And it didn't tell me Melk is like the next big thing. But when I do have to evaluate, does he have a path to victory? It's like, yeah, he's a long guy. He throws some kicks from the outside. He could have success with that against a smaller featherweight in Christian Rodriguez, a former bantamweight. And then you look at, okay, what about the grappling? I think C-Rod's the better grappler when it comes down to it. I think he could do it for longer. I think he stays more poised in extended situations. But Melk is an opportunistic guy. He does have that guillotine. We saw at Rosa, long, rangy featherweight who gave him some problems on the feet, put him in a guillotine. It's like the rhymes are there, right? You could find history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. It's like, yeah, we could definitely see a similar letdown performance by C-Rod in this spot. Melk has a lot of those attributes, but when it comes down to it, Erosa, way more UFC experience than either one of these guys, right? Than both these guys combined. And then meanwhile, on the other side, it's like, okay, C-Rod is proven, beaten good guys, fought tough guys, survived hell from Isaac Bulgarian, who in my opinion is the scariest one-round fighter at featherweight. And after doing that, he came back out and had Isaac huffing and puffing, blowing air and looking for anything, any takedown, any hold, any controlled position. He just did not want to be at distance with this guy. And I think Mel Costa, a lot of people are giving him credit for his cardio, which I do think on the regional scene looked fine. I think that in some of his fights in the UFC, it's not about cardio. It's about pace and it's about energy management. And I don't know that his energy management is on point against Lingo. It was a little bit too less, right? Like he toned it back way too much. And then in the fight against Steve Garcia, we saw him turn the dial like a million miles per hour. He's like, I'm going to grapple like my life depends on it. And it looked like he was exhausted at the 4-minute mark. So for me, when I look at Mel Costa, I think he's a solid guy. I don't think he's a bad fighter, but I think that Christian Rodriguez just a touch more talented. If I was lining this fight, probably make it -125 Christian, +100 Mel Costa. So for me, no value on the number. I'd probably just leave this one alone. How do you feel about this one, Wiz?
Very familiar with Mel Costa just because his last fight is against a former teammate of mine, and Andre Feely, someone who I've sparred with hours, if I were to count. And I think Andre just let that one go, unfortunately, and was finding a lot of success on the feet, and he shoots the takedown, the damn takedown. But we're breaking
the takedown giveth and it taketh away.
Man, that was just nasty. Mel Costa, I do really like his kicks. I do rate him in the kicking game a lot, and I think he could potentially cause issues for Rodriguez if he targets the body with those kicks a lot, which he does. The one thing about Melk that I do not like is his cardio. We've seen him gas out after a round to a round and a half on a couple of occasions here. And with Christian Rodriguez openly on Instagram showing that he's been out there in Mexico City for the past 6 weeks running 10+ miles almost on a daily basis. You got to love that in terms of the cardio. I don't like that he's going to be the much smaller guy, obviously coming up from bantamweight here. But the one thing is that people do not understand that he's not just a defensive grappler. He can be an offensive grappler. And this is all credit to my guy, Brandon Olivas. I watch his show religiously every week just because I respect his takes. And he's really close with Christian Rodriguez. And he mentions how significant the grappling advantage is going to be here for Christian Rodriguez if he actually uses it. And then on the feet, I think Christian is a motherfucker. I think he's going to stay in your face and he's going to hunt you down. He's going to hurt you over time. He doesn't have that one-shot power. It's more of attrition. Now, where I think the difference in this fight is going to be is really going to be the cardio. I think if this goes into the second and third round, I think Christian's going to be the much more fresh fighter here just due to the conditioning. Mel Costa fighting not too long ago. You saw a C-Rod, but not to the extent of 3 weeks. I just think that C-Rod's going to be a much more tough fighter here, and going 3 rounds and winning against a grappler, an Austin Bashi, who I rate much higher than Mel Costa, says a lot. So I think Christian Rodriguez is the rightful favorite here. I do like him a lot in this spot. So for me, I can only look towards the Rodriguez side. Not saying that Mel Costa doesn't have a way to win, because I do think this fight plays out close in the first round to round and a half. But as the fight goes on, I think Christian pulls away in the striking, in the grappling. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually submits Mel Costa here in this spot. So for me, it's Christian Rodriguez money line all day. We're getting that win back for Andre Fili, baby.
I like it. I like it. I absolutely cashed in on Rodriguez in his fight against Austin Bashi. He was a significant dog in that spot. Bashi, all the rage coming off Contender Series. And I had said that I thought Bashi was one of the most talented prospects on Contender Series. Stand by that. But when you go back and look, I also said they did him no favors with the matchmaking right off the rip. I tweeted that, I think, the day the matchup was announced. And then when the fight came down to it, give me a big plus money number on Rodriguez. I'm going to take it. Like I said, in this fight, I expect him to win. I do think there's a possibility of a letdown spot, but the preparation for this one sounds so much more dialed in. I like his confidence. I like his combinations. I like a lot of what he does in the cage. So I don't like how reactive he is. He kind of takes a lot of the fight that you give to him. We saw that against Dulgarian, right? Dulgarian was able to take him down, get his game going. And in my humble opinion, the one thing that Dulgarian could do different in a rerun would be to be way more damaging, right? Just throw elbows, be aggressive on top. And instead of focusing on those chokes, right? He got lost looking for the chokes. And I think C-Rod, very difficult guy to choke with anything other than that guillotine, because we've kind of seen, he's a guy that have put himself in some tough situations, but his defensive awareness is very sound. All right, man. We can move along to
just a question. Where is Isaac Bulgarian? Where is this guy?
I am not sure. I think he's 2-1 in the UFC right now, and maybe moving from the Factory X parking lot or something. I'm not sure. I think that's where he was last located.
So. Get up out of there.
Hey, man. Next up, we got Atiba Gauthier taking on Jose Medina. What do you got here, Wiz?
All right, the one thing you're going to hear over and over again, you probably have heard this all week. Jose Medina, one of the most durable fighters in the UFC. No way this guy's going to knock him out. I'm just going to say this plain and simple. Atiba Gauthier is going to win via first-round knockout here. You look at the past fight with Jose Medina going up against Zach Reese. Zach Reese was hurting him on multiple occasions and just doesn't follow up. He does not know how to follow up, and he goes into the clinch and follows him there. We have now learned what kind of fighter Zach Reese is, and people were a lot higher on him than what his performances have shown. Atiba Gauthier is not going to let this dude off the hook like Zach Reese did. And moving down to middleweight, his last fight showed that his durability did go away a little bit and it faded. Now going up against an even heavier hitter in Atiba Gauthier, I just don't think this is doing him any favors. He's at a massive reach disadvantage here, massive height disadvantage, going up against a dude who is 11 years younger. Sure, people will say that maybe he's green, but the one thing I do like about Gauthier is, at least we haven't seen at elevation. We don't know how his preparation looks like, but his cardio does tend to hold up. I know he has a lot of early finishes, but he does like to manage his distance well and manage his output and efficiency with the strikes, and doesn't really throw away big shots and doesn't throw those looping hooks. Really calculated. I like his Muay Thai. I like his distance management. And in this fight, I just don't see any other outcome for him than a first round knockout. So I do like the under. I believe right now it's plus 120. I think that's a gift of a line. For me, it's Atiba Gauthier in parlays, Atiba KO. I don't think the Jose Medina durability train lasts much longer. So, yeah, all signs point to Atiba KO for me, and that's where I plant my flag this week. Not a shocker by any means, but
I will say this. I think that the guy is very impressive as an athlete. You know, I had said in my article this week, if you rank order everybody on this card in terms of physique, he's going to be at the top of your list, right? Like the guy is just clearly a genetic freak. He's got power, he's got strength, he's fast. And I think also you have to talk about the skill, right? Because you talk about some of the intangibles, some of the physicality, things that he can't control. You know, you could work hard, you could do strength and conditioning. Some people are not going to look like a Thibaut Gauthier if they go to the gym every day. That's the God's honest truth. But when you look at what he does do, you know, it's the awareness. He's throwing shots that are anti-wrestling, uppercuts, knees, things that make you second guess. Like, do I want to shoot and get low on this guy? He's going to try and take my head off. So I do think he's a dangerous striker. I think he's got knockout power. I think he's got brutal intentionality with his strikes. The one thing I will say is I think he is very green. You know, the Glenn Williams loss is 2022. So it's 3 years ago. You can make huge improvements in 3 years, but he's had 7 pro fights. So he's not had a lot of experience in the cage. He finishes most guys, right? He's knocking them out quickly. So he doesn't get a lot of cage time out there. And he's making improvements, but he's a guy that needs to be coached through every position, right? You put him on the cage, he looks over at the coach. What do I do? Okay, great. Do this. Okay. And when you're thinking, you're not doing. So if I'm thinking, talking to coach, whatever, I got to take a second, a beat, a half beat, and stop what I'm doing to try and get my senses about me. That's why you want to train and get repetition so you don't have to think on fight night, right? It's like, I do this when they do this, right? And drilling in those reactions so it can just be automaticity. You don't have to think about it, it just flows. And that's where Atiba Gauthier is not there yet. You know, like he's still making those in-fight clunky decisions. You could see it against that guy. He's clearly more talented than him. It's almost a matter of time. The other guy doesn't want to be out there with him. He's like holding on for dear life, trying not to get killed. You could tell where the writing was on the wall and where that fight was headed, but you could still see the clunkiness to his game. And that from the Glenn Williams fight, I can just tell you guys, Glenn Williams retired after that fight. He never fought again. He was like, this is the greatest win of my career. I'll never do better than this. I'm riding off into the sunset with this one. But when I look back, I'm like, okay, Glenn Williams is a guy with an amateur background. He's not a very high-level guy. He was able to get the jump on him a couple years ago. Then you look at Jose Medina. The one thing that gives me hope about the Zach Reese fight, because I'll agree with you, if he just goes out there and strikes with this guy, he's going to get murked. Like Atiba Gauthier hits harder, he's faster. Things will be very, very bad for Jose Medina unless he clips him on the chin. It's still 2 men fighting, right? You hit somebody on the chin, they could get shook, they could get knocked out, but you don't really see a lot of signs of Atiba Gauthier looking fragile, right? So both these guys look like they're pretty durable guys. The difference being Medina way below in terms of a class of athlete. So what is his upside here? How could he possibly win the fight? For me, the one positive sign that he showed in that Zach Reese fight is he took down Zach Reese when he got hurt. There was one point in the first round where it looked like it's all over, like he is hurt badly, and he grabs a hold of a body lock, trips the guy down, and he gets on top. Now, Zach Reese has been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. He had a fight with Kevin Holland like 10 years ago, right? The guy's been around. He just didn't have that many fights. And now we've kind of seen why. The longer he's out there, the more some problems get exposed. But you look at what happens with Zach Reese, it's like he is a dangerous guy. He is an explosive athlete. He kind of brings some of those same things to the table. And he got taken down, but he knows jiu-jitsu. So he just got back up to his feet, right? Feet on hips, get back up. Medina doesn't really know jiu-jitsu. As far as I'm concerned, neither one of these guys know jiu-jitsu. You know, if one of these guys chokes the other one, it'll be by accident, right? It'll be like one grab a hold of him, like lift him off the ground type of deal. So I don't see this as like, you know, 2 jiu-jitsu savants and like who's going to test their grappling. It's like, no, these are 2 guys that are kind of wild bangers on the feet. One is a way better athlete, but both of them, if you put their shoulders flat on the mat, there ain't a damn thing that they know how to do to get up. So as far as I'm concerned, that was the flaw from Gauthier that was a standout on Contender Series, because that guy didn't sniff a takedown in the second round. But when he took him down in round 1, he racked up like 5 minutes of control time. My man was just parked on top, like all good. And Gauthier was near the fence, couldn't get up, right? Like he just didn't know how. He didn't know how to wall sit. Like things that should be like, all right, if I'm going to be in the UFC, things I should know how to do, like wall walk back to my feet. Like that's got to be on the list. Like dig underhooks. Again, the anti-wrestling tools that I liked are the uppercuts, the knees. That all works when somebody shoots and when they want to shoot. I don't think Jose Medina's ever shot a takedown in his life. That's the God's honest truth. He reaches for body locks and tries to trip people off their feet. that might actually work. Like that actually might work because Atiba Gauthier is like an upright dude who doesn't have great wrestling instincts, but he's got a lot of athleticism. So for me, right guy's favored, picking him to win by stoppage in round 1 or 2. But I will have that Medina, bet slip loaded up, and I'll be waiting there for a live click. If I see the mouth start to open up, if I see my man start huffing and puffing, altitude can do crazy things to people. And how about making a UFC debut in Mexico City, halfway across the world, when you've had one tough fight maybe in the last few years? It's like, again, I could see him overperforming. Like this guy, if you talk about UFC ceilings, his UFC ceiling is off the screen. Jose Medina's UFC ceiling is under the floor. But when you talk about this fight on Saturday, could I see him making a rookie mistake and losing the fight? I can. This does seem to me like banana peel pricing. So is Jose Medina going to win 5 fights in the UFC? God, no, he's not. But is he capable of winning this one by banana peel territory at plus 400? I think that he is. So I would be a little bit more hesitant in this one with the Gauthier side, but I do think that I'd prefer, an under to laying the big money line price that captures a lot of that, dominance equity that you think could be early. And I think that I see it the same way. Like he should finish him if he's who we think he is, but who is he? Right? He's got 7 pro fights. Like there's a lot of questions you still haven't answered when you're that young in a pro career. And the one fight that he lost is enough to go, whoa, let's pump the brakes just a little bit until he proves it to me. So Medina's a good, canvas, right? If you're a martial artist, he's a good canvas to go paint your work on, right? He's gonna give you a lot of opportunities for offense. But on the other side, it's like the one thing we know about him is he ain't gonna just bitch out for nothing, right? He's gonna make you earn it. You got to really take him out of the fight. So I think Gauthier is capable of that, but I think he's got to go out there and show me something. So it should be fun, man. Still one of the youngest guys on the roster, I should add as well, guys, 22 years of age. So Atiba Gauthier, circle that name. He will be murking people for the next 10 years on your television. Let's see if he starts that train on Saturday. Man, let's round out these prelims with a really interesting fight. You've got Edgar Chairez, heavy favorite here, despite just one win in the UFC, taking on CJ Vergara on the other side. Guy who's had mixed results, no doubt about it. Both these guys have had struggles on the scales, my man. Not one of them has made weight every time out, right? Edgar Chairez missed weight against Daniel Lacerda, the only time he actually won a UFC fight, might I add. CJ Vergara, on the other hand, he's 0-3 in fights where he's missed weight. So everybody stay tuned for weigh-ins. Knock on wood that these guys make the weight. But I'll tell you what, I think CJ Vergara is going to make weight for this fight, and I'll tell you why. Listen to his interview this week. CJ Vergara got a new strength and conditioning coach. He got a new nutritionist. He's been out in Mexico acclimatizing in the lead up to this fight. He said before he left for his camp, or before he left for Mexico, he had done everything in his camp to get his VO2 max to the absolute highest capacity it could be at sea level. And then he went out and acclimatized. So that sounds like a guy who's all in, right? All chips in on this performance, on doing things right. He's paying more money to have new strength and conditioning, new nutritionists. I like that. He's going out there saying, hey, I understand. I had to do a deep self-reflection because that was the first time in my career I've ever been dominated. I've ever been stopped with strikes in the first round. I had to ask myself a lot of hard questions and figure out how am I going to get better from here. And for me, CJ Vergara gave a very honest self-reflection in that interview and talked about all the work that he had to do. And he said, in that last fight, I had doubts about whether I had put in all the work and whether I deserved it and whether I had earned it. And he's like, and I don't have those in this fight. And for me, that's the kind of mentality that you need. Now, when he talked about Edgar Chairez, he acknowledged the truth, which is this guy fights like a Mexican gangster. He is not afraid to stand in the pocket, trade with you. Even when he's on death's door, like he was against Josh Van, he's still dangerous, man. He grabs a hold of the fence while he's about to be knocked out. He's like falling over, doesn't have his legs underneath him, grabs the cage, uses it to Beyblade himself, spin and elbow the guy as hard as he can. And Joshua Van was nearly knocked unconscious. Just unbelievable showing from Edgar Chairez in terms of toughness, heart, grit. But Does the guy have great cardio? Oh, fuck no, he does not, man. Like, the guy has been in a lot of fights where as the fight goes on, his baseline starts to dip off. And he's been in 5-round fights, so you want to give him respect. He's not a punk. He's not a guy that just goes out there and gives it up easy or something like that. But Jesus Aguilar handed him a submission loss. When was it? The 5th round of a title fight, a fight that was important. He went out there, made a critical mistake the later that the fight got against a guy that is small, right? Against a guy that is very compact in Jesus Aguilar. And by the way, somewhat easy to game plan for. Jesus Aguilar has some power on the feet, but he's knocked out one Shannon Ross, and he's a guillotine merchant. I say this as a guillotine merchant myself. I love the guillotine, but that's what Jesus Aguilar relies on. He found it against Edgar Chairez because he had all night to do it. And Edgar Chairez slowed down in his performance. You look at Edgar Chairez against Tatsuro Taira, he comes out the gate, he's doing okay, he's doing a decent job on defense, he lands even some powerful shots, but the longer that the fight goes on, the more attempts that he made going for sellout guillotines. He's pulling guillotine on a guy who had defended like 4 guillotines already in the UFC, just things that were negative EV decisions. A guy that, again, has missed weight for these contests. So he's not a consummate professional, doesn't always show up in the proper shape, doesn't always show up with the proper weight, has given it up late in fights before. I think that Edgar Chairez is a good fighter, but the line for me is a little bit prohibitive in this kind of spot. Where is he a very good decision fighter? Let's go back and look at his record, because I have a sneaking suspicion that he's not. So let me pull this up. I apologize that I don't have this handy, but I am working with 2 different topology screens here, trying not to interrupt the viewer experience. So Edgar Chairez, guys, in his career, 0-4 to the decision. So this is a guy who's never won a fight that's gone to the distance. He has given it up late in title fights, fights that matter for his career. He's 11-6 as a professional. He is barely winning 67% of his fights. It's like they both have the same record as a pro, essentially. Right? It's like they're the same guy. The difference is one guy's a little bit bigger, a little bit younger, a little bit more dangerous in the first round. So do all those things equate to minus 265? To me, they do not. Right? Edgar Chairez minus 150. Hey, if somebody wins in round 1, who do you expect it to be? Yeah, maybe I expect it to be Chairez, but here's the other thing. CJ Vergara will come out there and put knees in your gut. He'll come out there and get in a fight with you in the middle if that's what you want to do. And didn't work out for him against Ramazan Tamarov, who's, by the way, 2-0 in the UFC, win over Charles Johnson, a fringe ranked guy. The guy looks like aces right off the bat. By the way, has a ton of professional experience, more than Edgar Chairez. Chairez booked twice against the same guy, Daniel Lacerda. Those are the only 2 performances where he showed out in the UFC. The Josh Van fight, again, I gave him credit. I bet on him in that fight as a plus 200 underdog. He looked all right, but he gassed out substantially, and Josh Van puts on a heavy pace. CJ Vergara is not as aggressive, does not put on as heavy a pace, but he can go out there and fight for 15 minutes. He's done it before. He's gone out there and fought and won decisions before in his career. If we go look at CJ Vergara, on the other side of things, he's 5-3 career to the decision, not 0-4. So this is a guy who, in my opinion, if this fight gets extended, he's got a better chance to have good cardio, to push longer and deeper into this fight, and to win if it goes 15. So if that's the case, give me CJ Vergara on the money line. In terms of my instinct here, it's a dog or pass situation. Haven't bet it yet, but it's kind of the way I see this one. And I'm not a huge Vergara guy, but the one upside I'll give to Chairez is I think he's a very dangerous grappler. And I think Vergara, that's the way you get him, right? Like, he's a guy who's pretty difficult to get out of there with strikes. One guy's done it. A couple guys have gotten him out of there with the submission. Tatsuro Taira cleaned him up on the ground, wasn't able to submit Chairez. And we saw that Vergara was submitted on the regional scene back in the day. Somebody just jumped on him, took his back early. I don't see Chairez as that aggressive a grappler, right? I don't think he's landed a takedown so far in his UFC career. He's a good grappler, right? Like, guys try and wrestle him and he goes for the subs. But again, if he doesn't get that guillotine of his own, if he doesn't get his submission game going, he finds himself flat on his back. Doesn't have a great get-up game either. So for me, those are all huge flaws for a minus 265 favorite. So a guy I respect, but guy I like to back at dog price, not as a favorite. What do you think, Wiz?
Yeah, you look at this fight and these guys have some common opponents. It's kind of weird how the UFC match makes these people, but nonetheless, obviously Chairez, huge price point here at minus 260. It was an even bigger favorite earlier on in the week, around minus 360 to minus 400, I believe, in some books. When you just break down the games of these guys, Vergara is someone who tends to run away on the feet almost. And I do really rate Edgar Chairez's performance last time out against Josh Van. Gave a really good account of himself there in the striking. Was getting hurt to the body quite a bit, and which Josh Van does to almost everybody. So I'm going to cut him some slack there. But I think a sneaky look in this fight is going to be Edgar Chairez by KO. Plus 400 on BetOnline. I'm sure you can find better on some domestics, but that's just what's available to me. And I'm pretty happy with that price. I think Vergara is very open on the feet. He's not the most defensively sound when it comes to the striking. And I think the pressure that Chairez presents here on the feet is going to cause some issues for Vergara. Now, if this gets into the grappling, and even if Chairez lands on bottom, the one thing we've seen from him is he lands a lot of these nasty elbows from the bottom. And I feel like those will do some damage if he finds his way on top. The 12-6 elbows are now legal, so he's going to be able to use those. And both guys seem to be coming in with an incredible shape. Edgar Chairez in his interview towards the end, if you catch the last bit of it, last honestly 5 seconds of him walking off the stage, he lifts up his shirt and this guy is shredded to bits. So I think both fighters here make weight. Vergara, as you mentioned, talking about increasing his conditioning, increasing his cardiovascular endurance specifically for this fight, just so that way he knows he can go through the 3 rounds if it needs to get there. But, you know, instead of picking a side on this fight, I'd rather just stay away from both and take the fight doesn't go the distance at -110. I think both guys do have the opportunity to finish. I think it's more reliant on the Chairez side, but I'd rather cover both sides at -110 here. And I don't think this fight, and I don't think it ends up going into decision, just given to the fact that Chairez and Vergara here are both, I want to say, fighting for their jobs. These guys have not really shown the best in the UFC, and I think loser goes home. So for all those reasons, I really like the -110 fight doesn't go the distance. So that's all I have for this fight. Not the most inspiring breakdown because I'm not the most interested in this fight at all. But fight doesn't go is something that I'm close to playing.
No worries, my man. What we're going to do very briefly before we move on to the main event, we're just going to show your results from last week, my man. 9.54 units profit, 68% return on investment. Sean Brady looked like a -1,000 favorite. Easy money, grit and guillotines, the Irish way.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they told me that you can't finish that mounted guillotine or with that little half guard finish. I thought they told me that wasn't dangerous. Psych, wrong number.
Did you see that, Liam? Did you see how he finished it with one arm? So he grabbed the ghillie.
Dude, people tell me that they can't.
Tucked it under his chest, and then he pulled his second arm in. But he could have finished it with a single arm waving at the crowd this way. He had that second arm tucked under his chest, and he was just putting all his weight forward to create more pressure on Leon's neck. That was beautiful.
The beauty of the one-arm guillotine is that you can fight hands with the other hand. So when they try and come get your hand, when they try and come underneath, you're fighting hands, you're pushing it away, you're controlling it. You know, one of my favorite grappling matches, I finished with a choke just like that. I said that I stole it from Sean Brady. I steal from Sean Brady. I steal from Fluffy Hernandez. I am guilty as charged. I love their games. Grit and guillotines, pressure grappling, front headlocks, using it to take the back, using it to threaten the guillotine series. It's money. It's really good grappling in the modern, meta. So as far as I'm concerned, it's worth every penny. Kevin Holland goes out there, beats Gunnar Nelson. I thought Kevin Holland couldn't grapple, Wiz. That's what everybody was telling us last week. Then Kevin Holland goes out there, defends the subs, gets back up to his feet, nearly knocks the man out, cashes the decision. Alexa Tainara, easy coins, right? Molly McCann, thank you for all the coins. Meatball, we appreciate you. Rode off into the sunset, but gave me some nice props when she fought Diana Belbitsa. They gave her the free win, right? Free 99 win of the year. Thank you for that. Then reality check came due, right? Alexa Tainara, you could see her dancing. She knew what was going to happen. She's like, I'm about to get all the free coins. I'm about to get all the free coins. So shout out to Alexa Tainara, man. I think we got a better price because of the dance. Everybody was fading the dance. I'm like, guys, this is not Michelle Pereira. This is WMMA. The dance is so plus EV. I can't even imagine, right? The dance was longer than the fight. And the other thing we'll mention, your boy got in, got out. 1.25 units risked, 3 units on the comeback, 244% ROI. If we could do that every week, it would be a great thing. So, Lord willing, we keep the ball rolling this week, but just wanted to do a brief interlude to show some of the past results. We've been doing well the last few weeks, and all the results track third party for both of us for a long time. You can find it betmma.tips. Mine is LiamPicksFights. Wizz is I think it's Wizz MMA. So yeah, you guys can find us very easily on there. Full transparency, peace, love, and chicken grease. God bless you all. With that being said, guys, let's move on to this main card. We'll have Wiz start us off. Ronaldo Rodriguez, Lazy Boy, taking on Kevin Borjas. And Borjas is a guy I bet against Joshua Van as a big underdog. He came out, started hot, landed good shots, looked like a great bet. And then he gassed out substantially. He got his ass whooped in rounds 2 and 3. He was broken down in the stretch. He looked like, he was getting beat on, like he stole something. So ultimately, what do you see with this one, man? Fun fight, interesting scrap.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to break it down this way, but you got to look at this fight in terms of Ronaldo Rodriguez, Lazy Boy, being the grappler and Borjas being a striker. Just traditional striker versus grappler matchup here. And both guys have things going for them. Ronaldo Rodriguez, I really like this kid's toughness and his overall just mental durability. Goes out there against Banter and against forgetting his name, Ode Osborne, gets hurt in the striking both those fights, just finds a way and wills his way into the victory. He drowns his opponents as the fight goes on in the grappling. And then Kevin Borjas, really solid point boxing is what I would call it. Doesn't have the most power, but he will throw out a lot of volume. In his last fight, did show the appearance of him gassing out, which I do not like here at elevation. And then another thing that's going against him here is a lot of these Peruvian guys are, we thought very highly of them. And over their last fight to 2 fights, they've slowly started declining. But the good thing is that Peru, where they train, is also at a higher point of elevation. So I think that will help him in this fight. It's this soccer stadium, forgetting the name, but it's at a high point of elevation that is not the same as Mexico City. So I don't think the cardio is going to be too much of an issue here. But I do think that the grappling, if Lazy Boy is able to get it going early, he'll be able to find a lot of success here. And Lazy Boy is a prospect that the UFC seems to want to push here. Very good on the mic for someone who is really not all that known and still young in his UFC career at 25. Measurables, both these guys stack up almost evenly except for in the reach department. So I think it's just a matter of, can Kevin Borjas defend the takedowns, or can Lazy Boy find his way, get his takedowns, land on the mat, and then audit Kevin Borjas in the grappling? Because to be quite frank, I do not rate Borjas' grappling one bit. And I think that if this fight lands on the mat, it's going to be Lazy Boy all day. Now, as where the price was earlier in the week, I did not want to touch Lazy Boy. But if we take a look at the line right now, the line is starting to come in. Last I checked, yeah, even I was going to say minus 150. Now it's minus 142 Lazy Boy. If this closes in any more, I'm going to find myself on Ronaldo Rodriguez here in terms of a bet. I just think that he is the fighter that can project to be a bigger favorite than what the line indicates at this point in his career, just due to the skill set. So in his hometown, I got to take Lazy Boy, grappling advantage. As long as he doesn't hang out in the striking too long, I think this should be an easy matchup for him. So for me, I got to take Lazy Boy.
This is a fight that I will have to tape a little bit more. I haven't retaped Lazy Boy in a bit, but what I will say is the fight not to go the distance at plus money just seems really really stupid to me. When you look at Ronaldo Rodriguez, like the fact that his fight with Ode Osborne went to decision is a minor miracle. You look back at that fight, he was nearly finished in the first round. He came back, he had some moments of success later on in the fight. 2 submission attempts credited to Ode Osborne as well as a knockdown. There's been 5 credited submission attempts in 3 fights for Ronaldo Rodriguez. This guy's mixing it up, going crazy on the ground, looking for attempts. And meanwhile, he's getting dropped in his fights. Kevin Borjas, meanwhile, on the other side of things, he got knocked down by Alessandro Costa. He was not credited a knockdown against Joshua Van, but I do believe he won the first round on the judges' scorecards. And against Victor Diaz, he gave up 5 takedowns, but he did not concede any submission attempts in that contest. Did a pretty decent job working back up to his feet. I think the weight cut kind of, affected Victor Diaz in that spot. I do think Ronaldo is a star that the UFC is trying to push. He's got some of the biggest social media on the card. That being said, if he's not getting takedowns in this fight, I do think it's going to be a violent night at the office where he might get dropped again. And so for that reason, it does seem to me like the fight not to go the distance is my favorite look on this fight. And I'll just leave it there and do more tape and due diligence. I encourage you guys to read my article. I published my prelim portion already. The main card portion I will have for tomorrow. So this is one that I will be taping in the interim. What do you think about that fight not to go play?
Here's the thing. I do see a path for it, but I also do see that if elevation does strike both fighters, it can just be a tepid kickboxing fight if Lazy Boy gasses out and isn't able to land the takedowns. And Borjas has shown the capability of gassing out too. And his style is more just, he'll throw out the jab and hit the 1-2. Sure, Lazy Boy's striking defense is not good, but I don't think Borjas is going to have the power if he's zapped later on in round 2 and round 3. So, I mean, at the price, I sure would take it. But if I were to bet anything on this fight, it would have to be the Lazy Boy money line. That's just me being honest with myself here.
Fair play. All right, man. Next up, we got David Martinez taking on Simon Oliveira. And Simon Oliveira disappeared off the face of the earth, man. Like the guy, just hasn't had a fight in quite some time. Has not been very active since signing with the UFC. I believe my last write-up for this guy was UFC 283. I could be wrong about that. I'd have to double check. But in any case, not a supremely active fighter, a guy that hasn't had success in the UFC. David Martinez on the other side. I'll be frank, I thought he was solid on Contender Series, but I did think that the enthusiasm surrounding him was a little bit overhyped. We've seen the doctors. What was that young Asian girl's name? Ming, who kicked that girl's head off. Yeah, and David Martinez. What doctors know human anatomy, so I guess they're just having a great time as fighters. As far as I'm concerned, Simon Oliveira is just a complete question mark coming into this fight. He does have dynamic offense. What does he look like at this stage of the game? I don't know. Have to see him weigh in. Martinez seems like it's a setup spot for him, though. I again lean towards violence here. Simon Oliveira is kind of a sub or bust fighter from the looks of things at this level. And if that's going to be the case, David Martinez is probably going to go out there, use his superior cardio, his superior pacing, and his superior kickboxing, fundamental meat and potatoes to win the fight. So I kind of see him winning the fight, finishing it down the stretch, probably rounds 2 or 3. Oliveira's live in the first round, I would say, but hard to know what to expect from that guy. What do you think, Wiz?
Yeah, this is a fight where I didn't really take too much just for the sheer fact that I don't like getting involved in fighters or in fights with fighters who are generally an unknown and just don't know too much about, long absence for God knows what reason. And who I'm referring to is Simon Oliveira. In the past 2-3 years, he could have made massive improvements. And I am a bettor who likes to be a little bit more risk averse when it comes to that side of the gambling and the handicapping. So for me, I stayed away. I do think that David Martinez is a pretty decent striker and minds his P's and Q's, defensively sound. But again, like I was speaking about earlier with the Carlos Prates reference and the shiny lights, big card in his hometown, making his debut at elevation, there's a lot that can go wrong. especially at this price tag. I'm not saying that Simon Oliveira is going to win, but there's so many unknowns. Like, what if Simon Oliveira has improved so much in the striking and is able to at least give an honest fight and an honest showing against someone who's making his debut in his hometown that will feel the jitters. The crowd's going to be roaring when he walks out. And if round one doesn't go according to plan, things can start to get a little hairy. So for me, it's a big stay away. I wouldn't parlay Martinez, but I do predict him to win. I mean, I'm not going to say that Simon Oliveira is going to win this fight. I do predict a Martinez finish here, but no way am I getting close to that. So for me, this is a pass.
One thing to note here is if you look, Simon Oliveira's 11-0 career to the submission, which I do think is pretty strong. This fight is favored to end inside the distance. The books are obviously favoring Martinez via KO, but they are offering around 750, 800 on Oliveira via submission, and the money line is 3xx. So for me, they are big numbers based on unknowns, and unknowns could mean it should have been 5xx and the guy has just been sitting on a couch waiting to cash this last check, or it could have meant the guy rededicated himself to the sport, took himself out of the limelight, and now he's ready to come back and show off, an even better submission game that got him 11-0 already as a professional. So for me, just a lot of craziness, a lot of unknowns here. Gonna lay off that one. All right, folks, next up, we've got Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Vince Morales. And I think Vince Morales is a tough guy. I think he's a savvy veteran. I don't think he's a guy who lacks skills, but he's coming in off, a fight where honestly, Elijah Smith, in my opinion, is worse than Raul Rosas Jr. as a fighter. And I think that Elijah Smith is much more vulnerable. I thought Vince Morales fumbled the bag. I thought he should have won that fight. I thought Elijah Smith was there for the taking. That's the kind of fight he needs to win if he's going to be at this level. And I've heard a lot of people say this week, I thought he would have got cut. I don't know why he's here. God's honest truth. This is my opinion, right? This is not fact. But if I had to guess, they called Vince Morales. They said, hey, man, it's over, right? Your time's with the UFC is done unless you're going to take this fight with Raul on short notice. Because here's the bottom line. Vince Morales got his face kind of mushed up, into bits a few weeks back against Elijah. And he did have moments in that fight, but he got his face kind of bashed up in that fight. And now he's getting right back in there against Raul. And if Raul puts the squeeze on that butchered face, probably not going to feel so good for Vince, right? Like Vince is a guy that's a front choke merchant. And again, I love that. I love front chokes. But Raul Rosas Jr. is seeing that every day in the gym. He's trying to take people down every day. They're trying to front choke him every day. So if he doesn't get caught in one of these front chokes, like Elijah Smith, who's a way less credentialed grappler, by the way. So it's like, for me, those moments didn't really mean as much because, again, you didn't capitalize. You didn't finish. I'm like, man, a lot of problems here. And I think Raul Rosas Jr. has a path to come out here and be more effective with his striking than you would expect because Vince did not recover properly from his last fight. But also, I just think Raul is going to have takedowns in this fight. So if he gets on top of Vince, then he's probably going to have success either landing ground and pound or looking for his submission attempts from the back. So for me, there's opportunities for Raul to finish this fight. The fact he didn't finish Arichi Lang is not a bullish signal for me, but it's just styles make matchups. Vince Morales is a known loser at the UFC level, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful. It's just the facts as they are. If he changes them on Saturday night, take my hat off to him with much love and respect. But I think he was forced to take this fight to keep his contract, and I think his contract will be expiring on Saturday night. So for me, it's Raul Rosas Jr. I think he's probably going to finish him. What do you think about this one, Wiz?
Yeah, I think you broke it down perfectly. The only thing I'll add to that, I've heard nobody talk about this. It's been a month and a week exactly from when the fight will take place for Vince Morales since his fight against Elijah Smith. And Elijah Smith in that third round was a corpse. He was not dead to rights, but he was just dead cardio-wise. Vince Morales broke his nose in that fight. Nobody in any breakdown that I've heard this week has mentioned that Vince Morales he broke his nose in that fight. And I don't think you recovered.
I didn't know that specifically. I just knew he was mushed.
Yeah, he broke his nose in that fight against Elijah Smith. And now you're going up in elevation with a broken nose that has only had a month and a week to heal. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I do not like how that sounds for our guy Vince. So we wish him all the best. Nice guy, tough fighter, right? Deserved another shot in the UFC. Just think some guys, they're good, very good regional fighters, and they maybe just don't have the skills to crack it at this level. It's 135, right? This is not an easy division where there's layup matchups. It's like every guy's tough. And Vince Morales has fought a lot of tough guys, and he just keeps coming up short more often than not. I think he's coming up short again on Saturday. All right, man.
Yeah,
Next
I
up.
think Rosas finds a
Oh, please go
submission,
ahead.
and I think Rosas finds a submission and 14-year age gap. We already know the stat, so we highlight it a lot.
There you go. Next up, we got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Joe Bodybags Pfeiffer, and I'll let you kick us off first on this one, Wiz.
Yeah, so let's read off the measurable differences here. 5'9" versus 6'2", 71.5-inch reach versus 75-inch reach. Kelvin Gastelum is a guy that has given up a lot of takedowns in the UFC, and I think the path of least resistance for Joe Pfeiffer is going to be the takedowns here. Gastelum is just known to have a granite chin. Now, will it hold up here against a really heavy hitter in Joe Pfeiffer? Maybe. The one thing that I am still curious to see is how Joe Pfeiffer's cardio is going to hold up, because he did go all 5 rounds with Jack Hermanson. Got his leg chewed off there. I think Kelvin Gastelum can land some leg kicks here too. But this is a 3-rounder. If Pfeiffer wants the path of least resistance, it would be through the takedowns, similar to how his teammate Sean Brady just went out last weekend in London and did his damn thing. I'll say it again. The Philly boys have the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC, and I think he can pull it out here. Now, one of my favorite angles on this fight, other than just Pfeiffer in parlays, because I think that he ends up winning this fight regardless of decision inside the distance of KO. I do really like the Pfeiffer decision line. Let me pull it up and see what it is here on BetOnline as of right now. Joe Pfeiffer by points. It was at plus 250. Now it's at plus 175. Not as nice right now. But I did consider taking it a little bit earlier when it was at that better price point. I just think that there is a world where both fighters tend to slow down and it just drags into a sloppy 3-round either grappling match or kickboxing match. But Pfeiffer is going to be able to out-physical this guy. He has a huge measurables advantage here. And I just don't see a world where Kelvin Gastelum is going to be able to compete. I hate saying that against a fighter who has faced the who's who in the UFC and put up honest fights. We'll never forget his fight against Israel Adesanya at 185, where, in my opinion, that was Adesanya's hardest fight to date. So for me, I'm just looking towards Pfeiffer here, leaning towards fight goes. So yeah, give me Pfeiffer and parlays.
In a card with a lot of mutual agreement, we have met a disagreement. I think the worst bet that I placed all of last year was Joe Pfeiffer on the money line against Jack Hermanson. And I've made some bad bets in my day, but I always pride myself on trying not to lay chalk, right? And when I am laying chalk, I'm very selective about when I lay chalk. But last year I had a hard time because a lot of chalk came through and I had the unfortunate run out of I think I 2 or 3 times, was like, okay, this is a chalk spot I believe in, and it didn't work out. And the Pfeiffer fight was one of them. The Tatsuro Taira fight against Royval was another. And obviously the common denominator there was UFC experience, right? 2 guys that had been in the UFC for a long time, and they just had savvy veteran tactics they were able to draw out. Were they, blowouts? No, they were actually both competitive decisions, but the younger guy with less experience to fall back on didn't have it that night. And hats off to him, right? It was a mistake by me, and you got to learn from your mistakes. Now, I look at a guy like Joe Pfeiffer in this spot, and do I think he's a deserved favorite? Yeah, for some of the reasons that you mentioned, I get where you're coming from, right? He's a big guy, way bigger than Kelvin, natural middleweight, a guy that's like a borderline light heavyweight type of guy. And Kelvin on the other side is, a natural 170 in a lot of people's conceptualization. Truthfully, I think if there was a 175, a 178, Kelvin would be great. I do think he is a tweener, right? I say this as a guy, I wrestled at 57 in college. Those last couple pounds were tough for me, where if I wrestled at 165, man, I felt like I was a midget compared to those guys. 160 is what I wrestled in high school. I felt great there. It's like these small little things that can make a big difference. 10 pounds is a lot. And we always act like it's not because it's mixed martial arts, but some of these weight classes, 15 pounds, 170 to 185, guys, 15-pound gap, huge difference, right? So Kelvin at 170 is a nice ideal, but the problem is he's a husky guy. He's a big guy. He's got big ribs. Like, he just is built like a box. Those guys do not cut easily down to another weight class. So has Kelvin shown that he can compete at 185? I mean, fuck yeah. Like, absolutely he can. If you go back and look, he's gone to competitive decisions with guys who are still ranked in the top 5, top 10. So I think Kelvin's a proven guy at 170 and 185. He's just a guy that you question sometimes the motivation, the game planning, the IQ, his grappling, honestly, against the very best guys in the division. We saw Jack Hermanson, for example, put him in a heel hook very early in the contest. But when I look at Kelvin Gastelum, right, I listened to an interview. Kelvin Gastelum did his whole training camp in Mexico. The guy has been absolutely pedal to the grindstone, trying to make sure that he's in the best shape of his life. He sounds confident. He sounds ready to perform. He sounds like a guy that's done all the right work, which I will say in the past, I've never felt that way about Kelvin, right? I liked the interview from Kelvin. And I think on the other side, it's a tale of two interviews, right? On the one side, Kelvin's saying, I'm confident, I'm prepared, I put in all the work. This guy's big, he's strong, but I got a great game plan for him. I know that he's going to come out trying to kill me in round 1. I know he's going to get tired if he does it. I'm going to make him work. I'm going to get him tired. I'm going to win the fight as it gets longer. I like everything I'm hearing, right? Then I go over to Joe Pyfer, and he's like, yeah, so I'm coming off of back surgery. Bro, the first 3 minutes of an interview are just spent talking about back surgery. And this guy basically said, like, I was scared to go back in the weight room. I was scared to do this and that. Like, okay, not very confident, right? Like, not very I'm ready to get in there, right? A lot more excuse padding. And again, I don't say this to be disrespectful. This is just my interpretation as a listener of the interview. It's like, hey, if this one doesn't go my way, just so you know, I got back surgery, real bad back. 3 things fell out of my back. My whole back collapsed. I'm afraid it'll collapse again. I was afraid in training. I'm like, dog, like at minus 550, and I know it's down to minus 350 or whatever it is, but all those for me are big warning signs, right? Because this is a guy that went out there, and what was his problem in his fight against Hermanson? A lack of skill, a lack of talent? I don't think so. It was a lack of doing enough. It was a lack of consistency, maybe a lack of cardio and pacing over the course of 25 minutes. Now it's a 15-minute fight. He's going back and forth, right? So he's done 25. Now he's going back to 15. It's like 15, you got to go right now. And at elevation, a guy that's admittedly struggled in training to just stay healthy, what has he brought to the table for this fight? I know on the other side, Kelvin is as confident as he's ever been. He's put in as much work as he ever has. He feels like he's in the best shape of his life. And on the other side, the guy's telling me my surgery was a serious one, and I was afraid, and I had all these problems. And I'm like, that when you see that, you'd expect the lines to be the opposite, right? It's like the guy who's telling you about his back surgeries should probably be a massive underdog. And the guy who's telling you about his confidence, his cardio, and his preparation should probably be a favorite. Now, obviously, all the other physical intangibles and, the reality of a 6'2" hulking monster against a guy who's, 5'9" and looks like he could be a lightweight if, he had been sucked out with a vacuum or something. It's like, yeah, okay, I definitely understand. But when I'm looking for confidence, that's what I need to know, that I checked all my boxes with a favorite. And I thought Pyfer had that against Hermanson. I was like, he's stronger, he's bigger, he's more physical, he's a better grappler, in my opinion. I was like, he's the harder hitter, all these things, and he still fucking lost the fight. And afterwards, he was making excuses, and he sounded like a bitter, arrogant guy, right? Like kind of off-putting, right? So was he humbled by his experience? I don't know, because he's talking about back surgeries and he's talking about excuse making for this fight and a couple things that just gave me big fucking blaring red flags. So I will say all that to say, I've been a fan of Joe Pyfer. I thought the guy deserved big opportunities. He's had a hard life. He's already overcome a lot. If he never won another UFC fight, he's a winner in my book. The guy's a stud. Is he going to have many more wins in the UFC? I think so, man. 28 years of age, guy's clearly got talent. But we also got to talk about his body, which has fallen apart on a number of occasions. He broke his arm against Dustin Stoltzfus. How many people are picking them in a rematch? It's like, yeah, we would expect Pyfer to win that one. Here's the other thing, though. He got picked up and put down in that fight. That's where he broke his arm. He got picked up, put down, went to base out on his arm snapped. So now my man snapped his arm. He's given out 3 discs in his back. Everything's falling apart on the guy. Again, I'm not wishing ill on him. He's a fighter. This is the durability business, right? We're in the hurt business. His body's falling apart on him at 28 years of age. Kelvin has been a picture of durability at 33, and he's fought a million guys in the UFC, right? He's been in the rigors. He's done all that shit. And he's not an easy guy to finish or put away. Only guys that do it submit him. They have to hulk him around. They got to move him physically. Chris Weidman, Jack Hermanson, black belts, high-level black belts at that. So it's like, those are the guys that are getting him out of there. It's not easy. And most of the time, they got to work hard to do it. Obviously, the Jack fight is like the meme of all memes. He just falls back into a heel hook. Kelvin's like, what's happening? And just gives up his knee. If Joe Pyfer heel hooks him, I'll fucking take my hat off to the guy. I just don't see that happening, right? It would have to be more like the Weidman, 6 takedowns. I now horse you back to the ground. You're too small, young man. Put you in a head and arm choke and bully beatdown, right? Nassau Coliseum explodes. One of my favorite fights ever, right? Kelvin's not an aces grappler. He doesn't have everything swaged away. But when you look at what does he bring to the table, he's got pretty decent skills everywhere. Not an easy guy to put away. Gonna fight you hard for 15 minutes. And most of the guys that have beat him in a close decision where judges on a different night could have given it to him. So that's the Adesanya fight. That's the Till fight. That's a bunch of fights off his record at 185 that didn't go his way that you're like, man, it could have went his way. And his wins at 185, they're kind of hard to evaluate, right? He knocked out some old guys. Like, you really don't know what to put on him. But for me, the guy has shown me over the course of his career, he's a pretty competent guy. He's a pretty solid fighter. And most guys aren't going to punk him and make it look easy. So when you give a massive plus money tag on a guy like that, with all this UFC experience against a guy that, in my opinion, has some red flags on the interviews, has some red flags in terms of his background and the fights that he's lost to guys that he is quote unquote better than, for me, that's a red flag. So I'm so glad that we had some disagreement here for fertile ground, right? Because we've obviously agreed on a lot of these picks, but I'm curious what your reaction is to that breakdown, because I do think that this is a fight where, again, I'd favor Pyfer, but I just think that the line absolutely too wide.
Yeah, I just think that Kelvin, in multiple interviews in the past, has always been able to sway the media with his good interviews, and he's a well-spoken guy. I just do not think that at this weight class he's able to excel. There's just, at least at this point in his career, you look at the media photos that he took yesterday too, and still looking like the same old Gastelum, coming in out of shape, a little bit overweight and fluffy. But Joe Pyfer, with the health issues, does give me a little bit of hesitance. I still think he's able to get it done. I think he's just going to be able to out physical him. And Kelvin, though skill for skill, if you're just matching him up skill-wise, it's going to be Kelvin all day. I just think that the physicality of Pyfer and the ability to land takedowns at a high clip is going to be a little bit too much. I think he's going to be able to win minutes consistently on the ground as long as he takes that path. So if he takes the grappling path, I think, it'll be fruitful for him. But if not, and he keeps it on the feet and gets his leg chopped off, then that's a different story. So I can see how it plays out in that way as well. But I just think that Kelvin's a little bit past his prime here. The one thing that I did note from one of his interviews during media day is that he wasn't excited to sign the dotted line against Pyfer. So that also is a red flag for me. But yeah, not really the most confident when it comes to Pyfer, but I do think he comes through.
Yeah, in that interview, he had said like he was shooting takedowns and like falling over. He had bad balance, and like it was all because of his back. Those were the kind of things that threw me off here. But I acknowledge, like, physically different athletes here, but Kelvin, for me, he looks like he's washed in terms of like he's been around so long and he's won some, he's lost some. Still just 33, like sneaky young Kelvin Gastelum, but he's got to get some wins and put it all together, because the guy has had a lot of opportunities. So another one here, but he fought in Mexico City at the first event that they ever did in Mexico City. That's how long this guy's been with the company. He's literally been a UFC lifer. So Kelvin, ups and downs for sure, but I think 185 will be a little bit better for him, because the guy last time out was trying to cut weight. I know he ended up missing the weight, all that conundrum, and I gave him a lot of shit for that. He had staph and was like trying to just like get into the fight so he could get paid. And I'll just say, knowing what I know about UFC payment structures, like anything a fighter does to get more money out of these guys, I am for, and I don't blame them, right? Like the Kevin Holland business plan, it's not what I want to bet on most of the time, but it is something I understand. Cash that check, brother. Get your green. All right, man. Co-main event of the evening. We got Manuel Torres taking on Drew Dober in what promises to be a violent affair. And I'll lead us off here, man. I think Manuel Loco Torres is a dangerous fighter. And I don't think everybody's giving him his due. You know, I think some people are giving him his respect. I think a lot of people are brushing off his results, memes, you know, just around one finish guy. And hey, this is a fight, right? However you want to try and win the fight, God bless you. Mike Tyson used to say you can fight for the knockout or you can fight for the decision. We know a lot of guys that can't finish anybody, but they could go put up 15 minutes of winning minutes and go get the nod. Fine, fair play. If you can't do that, how do you win? Manuel Torres found out, hey, I'm a violent son of a gun, man. I could go out there and I could finish most people in 5 minutes. If I can't, fuck, going to be a tough night at the office for me more often than not, but I'm going to go out there and lay it on the line and find out. And we've seen a little bit of early adversity does not mean he's out of the fight. Right? Chris Duncan comes out, first punch of the fight, throws from his hip, buzzes him up, good. Manuel Torres is like, holy shit, time to recover right now or this fight's going to be a disaster. And he starts grappling on autopilot. And what does he do? He proceeds to take Chris Duncan down, nearly take his back. Duncan gets back up to his feet, takes him down again, takes his back, submits him in the first round. Chris Duncan is now 3-1 in the UFC. Right. So let's put a little bit of respect on the grappling of Manuel Torres, the only guy who, by the way, Chris Duncan submitted 2 guys, put him to sleep, right? Choking guys unconscious. Manuel Torres put that rear naked choke on him. He couldn't even fight hands in time. He started to tap. He's like, get me out of here. Long arms, long frame, ability to take the back in athletic fashion. That's what I saw from Manuel Torres in that spot. Drew Dober's kind of built like a hydrant. Not going to have an easy time taking his back. I will grant that. But we have seen other guys dominate him from the top position. You know, Islam Makhachev submitted him without a move, right? Just grabbed a hold of him, you know, top shoulder pressure real hard. And Drew was like, yeah, I've seen enough of this. Get me out of here. Obviously, you saw the rippling back of Makhachev. He's a big, strong dude. But I'll just tell you, that's shoulder pressure, man. That's called being in bottom half guard, you know, against a good guy. And Drew Dober was like, get me out of here, man. And Drew Dober's had some real awkward, weird grappling scenarios in his UFC career. A lot of people are giving him credit for the Gene Silva fight. Do we not remember that he was favored to beat Gene Silva? Gene Silva was like plus 105, plus 110, right? Everybody's saying Drew Dober, this kid at 145, no way he's going to come up and do anything. And then he comes up and boxes his ears off and, you know, cuts open his face bad and fight gets stopped. And honestly, it was a bit merciful. I don't think it would have ended well for everybody was talking like, yeah, if Drew Dober just had like 5 more minutes, I was like, if he had 5 more minutes, he probably would have gotten splattered in a way worse manner. So Gene Silva, a 145er, bumps up and beat his ass. That's the truth. Matt Frivola, you know, a guy that I really like and respect, I thought had a clear path to a submission against Drew Dober. He went out there and knocked him out clean in a minute and a half. Like, I think when you look at Drew Dober's recent run, there's a lot of room for things going wrong. I like Drew Dober. I think he's an awesome fighter. I think he's fun as all hell. He can definitely win this fight. He could definitely finish Manuel Torres. But I just think that there's a lot of Drew Dober bettors that like think Manuel Torres is like drawing dead to the knockout. I think he might be drawing dead to a finish in the first 7.5 minutes, but would I rule out him submitting Drew Dober? No, I would not. Like, I've definitely seen Drew Dober hurt really bad. And when you're hurt really bad, you know what happens? You don't make great decisions when you're grappling, right? Manuel Torres was hurt and submitted Chris Duncan. Could he submit Drew Dober if Drew Dober is hurt? Yeah, in my opinion, he definitely could. So in the way I draw up this fight, I'm like, Drew Dober is going to walk forward and get into violent exchanges with a guy who's trying to kill you with every strike, right? Like we saw against Nicholas Mota. He hit him so hard with an elbow. Nicholas Mota like flew off his feet. Like he loaded that thing up from a half a mile away and Mota wasn't even trying to defend on the ground. He's just like he was off in cyberspace. Like the guy got cracked and Mota's a tough kid. Mota's not an easy guy to put down. So I think that when you look at this guy's body of work, he's showing like, is he the greatest fighter? No, he's a guy that's going to go out there and make it a super violent affair. So closely lined fight. I agree with that. I like the unders. I like the violence. I have to look at prices, but ultimately the ways I'd look to get cheeky in this fight would be a Manuel Torres submission. If it's a big enough price, because I do think the club and sub is live, sub 1, sub 2 kind of equity. I don't think he's live. Really, the deeper that this fight goes, I think Dober would take over on cardio. But Dober is a guy that I believe did his camp in Colorado. I don't think he did his camp at all in Mexico for this one. And he's a guy that stays very active. He takes a ton of damage. He's been in a lot of wars. So could I see Manuel, who's a very athletic guy with big strikes, take him out? Yeah. And Ignacio Bahamondes, how's that loss aging? Fine. Bahamondes is now a ranked fighter. He's a very good fighter, and he has been for a long time. Huge, right? Long, tall, can match a lot of what Manuel Torres brings in terms of physical, intimidating presence. And Drew Dober is half his size. So again, I think that fun fight, good scrap, both guys can win it. But I just wanted to make a positive case for Manuel Torres because I've heard a lot of shitting on him this week, which I understand. Like, yes, he does get hurt in some of his fights, but so does Drew Dober. And Drew Dober's getting hurt against Terrence McKinney. He's getting hurt against Matt Frivoli. He's getting hurt against guys that they pack a punch, but they're also not the best lightweights in the world, right? So I think Manuel Torres, he's not the best lightweight in the world. Ignacio Bahamondes showed him the levels last time out, but now he's got another opportunity against a smaller opponent. I think he's going to try and leverage that big frame, and I think somebody's getting killed in the first 2 rounds here. I just think the guy with more submission equity is Torres. How do you feel about this one, Wiz?
Yeah, I think line is pretty much accurate where it is. I do think the fight ends within a round and a half now. That's not a surprise. The under is favored at -205 right now, currently on Bet Online. When you look at the matchup itself, Drew Dober is going to be the better striker. I would say he's definitely going to be the more durable fighter, but not by much at all. I think Dober has been in a lot of wars and has taken a lot of damage. The one thing I do like about the way Manuel Torres strikes is that he strikes straight. He doesn't throw looping shots, so he uses his length to his advantage. And with 3 extra inches of reach and then 2 inches in height, it almost adds a little bit more to that reach advantage, because I've talked about this in other shows before, but when you're punching upwards, you're giving up a little bit more reach as compared to punching downwards. And then when you couple it with the extra 3 inches of reach on the Manuel Torres side, it gives him a little bit of a kind of like a pocket to keep his distance. And the way he strikes with that straight 1-2, he's going to be able to find Dober a lot. Now, Dober does not really have head movement, so that's another thing. So I just think that either of these fighters can finish each other within the first 2 to 3 minutes. I do think that MMA's darling of the week is Drew Dober, and I haven't seen anyone on Manuel Torres, maybe like one person. So that's a big red flag. I tend to be a little bit more on the contrarian side more recently rather than, being with the public. So I do favor that. And I do like that Manuel Torres can pull out the grappling from his back pocket at any time, especially when we've seen Drew Dober off of his back offer close to nothing in the fights where he's landed there. So I think both fighters can finish each other. If I were to do anything in this fight, it would be the under, but it's unplayable now. But for me, I'm actually leaning towards the Manuel Torres side. Manuel Torres by submission. Let's see what that line is. Plus 400. I mean, it's not the worst look in the world if you do want to get involved. But ultimately, I just think this fight ends by knockout. Let me see if I can grab a line on that. -250. Not even playable. But yeah, this likely will be a fight that I will watch from the sidelines, rooting for my guy Manuel Torres to get a win in his hometown.
Man, -182 to the under doesn't seem horrible to me. I'm looking for the fight not to start round 3. Oh, that's -350. Disgusting. So
yeah, disgusting.
That's the tipping point. They're basically saying it will be over before 10 minutes is up, but does it go 7.5 or does it end in that little window there, 7.5 to 10 minutes?
They are all over it. Now, I mean, if you want to squeeze out any value, if you really think that there's no way this fight hits the scorecards, you can draw an extra, 20 to 30 cents on Manuel Torres inside the distance at plus 120 if that's something that, you like to squeeze out. But would I advise it? Probably not. I would give up 20 cents for the extra decision equity.
Indeed, man. Indeed. I would never get greedy in a situation like that. I think that it's the kind of fight where It's a close fight. I would only get involved on a money line if I could get plus money on either side. I do think it should be like a -110 type scenario. But the last thing I'll leave us with on this fight is anthropomorphic advantages. Every one of them is on the Torres side. He's the local market fighter in terms of who's going to get that crowd support. And I do think Drew Dober is a battle-tested guy. He's been all around, but he does seem to me like he's on the back nine of his career. And I think Manuel Torres, meanwhile, has a lot still to give at 30 years of age. So fun fight, great scrap, and I'm excited to see it play out. I think somebody is getting served. So let's see how it goes.
I do think that Dober is a little bit shorter than 5'8", though. I met him, this was a year ago at the Bellator Championship Series here in San Diego. And I think this guy is more along the lines of 5'6". So I think those measurables
wouldn't surprise me. Never believe the UFC measurables. That's a golden rule. But
I think the chin kind of accounts for a little bit more.
Indeed. My man, why don't you lead us off? We got the main event of the evening. Brandon Assassin Baby Moreno is taking on Steve Erceg, the Astro Boy. And Erceg, 2 off the trot, man. He's lost 2 in a row. He's looking to bounce back here and needs a win. Meanwhile, Brandon Moreno looked like a phenom in his last performance. But I think part of that was the opponent, right? I don't think his opponent, Amir Albazi, was ready for primetime on the night. So ultimately, I think whether that was injuries, whether that was a lack of fundamental preparation, guy could not pull the trigger. So not a great reference point necessarily, but we've seen very competitive fights with Brandon Moreno against top guys in the division in Mexico City, right? So this guy is a proven commodity in the flyweight division. How do you feel about this one, Wiz?
I'm going to highlight the last couple of words you said. A proven commodity in the flyweight division. You put him up against any fighter, and he's given an honest fight. I just feel very strongly about Erceg's title shot being given to him at 10 in the division, being a little bit too soon. I think the UFC should have built this guy up a little bit more. I'm not going to take anything away from Erceg. He's skilled wherever this fight goes, whether it's in the grappling, whether it's in the striking. But I think the one thing that I do not like about Erceg's game is his defense. He leaves a lot to be desired, and he gets hit by a lot of shots that he doesn't see. And you'll hear a lot of analysts talk about this, and it's the strikes that you don't see that hurt you the most. And Moreno is really good at disguising his shots. So I think Moreno is going to be able to land pretty much anytime he wants here. Will he be able to put Erceg out? I don't think so, because Moreno hasn't really shown the capability of getting that many knockouts in terms of the power. It's more of attritional work. In the grappling, I think this plays out very close. But similar to how Green King mentioned here, I think that the travel for this fight is going to be a detriment to Erceg's game plan. Moreno, obviously, training out of Mexico is going to be a big advantage. So he's already more acclimated. He's going to have the whole crowd on his side. And he's not old by any means, even though he might be old in terms of fight age. He still has a lot to give in this sport. I think this is a matchup for him to really showcase that he's still very much in the mix for a title run. And I think he gets it done here. So I think Moreno wins by decision here. Probably 4 rounds to 1. I just don't think that Erceg is ready for a fighter of the level of Moreno, even though he showed a very good outing against Alexander Pantoja. But that could be as a result of just overall confidence in being shot up so high in the rankings. We've seen a lot of people outperform in those types of spots, and very soon after, they have a quick decline. And the last time out against Kai Kara-France, who, not taking anything away from Kai Kara-France, he's one of the hardest hitters in the division, if not the hardest hitter in the division. But coming off of the 2.5-year layoff that he was coming off of, multiple injuries, still being able to get it done against Erceg, I just have to favor Moreno here. I think he's going to be able to land whatever he wants. So give me a Moreno decisively.
I'm going to lean the same way. I'm going to do it with slightly less conviction, though. When you look at this fight, I think that Steve Erceg, If you're going to approach Brandon Moreno, I think you should be trying to copy the blueprint laid out by Brandon Royval in their most recent meeting. I mean, what a sensational fight. I think just hats off to Royval, who's proven himself to be one of the most improved UFC fighters in the last 5 years. He still has some improvements he needs to make in terms of his ability to defend takedowns, get up from the bottom position when he gets put there, as opposed to playing off his back, looking for submissions. But when you talk about what Brandon Royval did in his early UFC fights, it was just chaos. It was just craziness, spin, throw, go, just all offense, but no real plan, no real structure, and often putting himself in huge danger to just try and fire back. As he got a little more mature, he realized I can go a little in, I can go a little out, I could touch, move, make the guy miss, make him frustrated, use my speed. And I think the thing that was a big game changer against Brandon Moreno was the kicks. He was throwing teeps to the body. He was throwing low kicks. He was throwing high kicks. He was throwing body kicks. He just never let Brandon Moreno establish a boxing rhythm. Every time he wanted to box, he was getting kicked, whether it was in the leg, whether it was in the arms. And how do you deal with a boxer? You kick with them, right? If you can't take them down, you kick with them because they want to have set feet. You kick their set feet, it's going to be a problem for them. They want to have the ability to throw hands from a set position. And if you get their hands out in front blocking, you will deaden their arms very quickly. Now it's harder to box. Now I don't want to throw as much. Now I have to be more selective with my shots. So I think you're looking at a guy in Brandon Moreno who has put out a lot of film, right? He's fought many 5-round title fights. He fought Figgy over and over again in a 4-fight quadrilogy, right? The guy's given a lot of himself to the sport, and that's a concern at 31 years of age. But last time out, motivation looked good, cardio looked good, preparation looked good, skills looked good, combinations look great. I thought we saw a lot from Brandon Moreno. I mentioned didn't see a lot of resistance. The Royval fight, he fought well. He landed big shots, but Royval is durable. He's very well conditioned, so he shows up ready to fight hard for 5 rounds. The takedowns, he was able to get a bunch of them, and Royval just did a really good job in that fight keeping it moving, right? Moreno didn't want to be in static grappling positions. He's not a very natural top player to just like go take people down and hang out on top of them. He's much more opportunistic. Keep them moving, keep them scrambling, pass a little bit, look for the back, put them in bad situations. That's where Moreno thrives as a grappler, is as a scrambler. In terms of his pure wrestling, like hold you down, hey, you guys seen his credentials? Did he ever wrestle at the NCAA? It's like, no, like none of those things. Control style wrestling and grappling, maybe not his forte. Steve Erceg is a good grappler, right? He's not a bad grappler in his own right. He's got good submissions. He's got good transitions. He's got pretty decent takedown defense as well. However, there are times he makes suboptimal decisions in the grappling. He pulls guillotines, which again, I like pulling guillotines when you have secured position, when you use it to advance position. When you end up underneath David Dvorak after hurting him, I don't like it, right? It's like that's when it's a mistake. I think that we've seen Steve Erceg have competitive moments, fights, minutes with basically everybody he's fought in the UFC, which is what's impressive. The problem is we saw the downside to his style, which is Kai Kara-France was able to connect with his big looping overhand shots, and Steve Erceg was right there to be hit by them. Brandon Moreno, very similar in terms of his boxing approach. Does not have as much power as Kai Kara-France, but he's looking to set up a lot of the same shots. The left hook, the right overhands. I think that that's something that we have to be very cognizant of coming into this fight is Erceg, how confident is he? How does his chin react after taking a knockout blow for the first time in his career? I think these are all things to consider. He's got a 1-to-2 knockdown ratio after a handful of fights in the UFC. Erceg has not proven that he's the most powerful one-shot hitter. He does have some power. His finishing instincts leave a little bit to be desired. On the Brandon Moreno side, he doesn't knock down that many people, but he's hurt people to the body. He finished Kai Kara-France, a common opponent, by hurting him and finishing. I think one thing that goes unremarked upon for Brandon Moreno's career is that this guy lost his coach and corner, James Krause, for all of his faults. And I was talking about it before people thought it was, a cool thing to talk about, where I was like, man, this guy is sketchy, whatever. But the truth is, as a corner, as a coach, he's an excellent corner. He did a great job. And he told Brandon a lot of things he needed to hear, including where to put that body kick. So Brandon Moreno lost his coach and corner and had to refigure things out with Saif Saud and do all these things. It's been tricky for him. He hasn't always found the great team. He hasn't always had the right people around him. But he sounds motivated, confident, excited for this fight. I don't think Erceg's the most dangerous guy in the division. I think he's talented everywhere. I think he's got skills everywhere, but I don't think he's got the ability to hurt Moreno at a super high clip. So I like the crowd optics. I like the things that, the pressure from Erceg is not as kick heavy, right? And I think that if you're going to go out there and just force pressure forward and make boxing exchanges happen with Moreno, I think that's Moreno's fight to win. So for me, this is a winnable fight for Moreno, another opportunity to get back on track in Mexico City, but enough hesitancy because he's already lost in Mexico City, fumbled the bag as a big favorite. I think that's where my hesitancy comes from here, but I do think he gets the job done. I think Steve Erceg, good fighter, but I think he's a little overranked in the division, right? Very solid. I thought he was going to beat Dvorak as an underdog in his debut. He did that. But then he got fast-tracked to a UFC title fight in a thin division. Then they tried to set him back up like, hey, let's get you situated in the top 5, clear out the old cobwebs with Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France absolutely decks him in the first round. Now this guy's kind of scrambling for, hey, where am I? How is this free fall going in the rankings? Like, I was almost the champ, and now I can't even beat the top 5 guys. All right, can I beat the top 10 guys? Like, let's figure it out. Where this guy actually should be ranked, this is going to tell us a lot. I think Brandon Moreno gets the job done, but I don't think it's going to be easy. Wiz, anything you want to add here before we get out of here?
No, man. To be honest, I just one thing I left out of my breakdown is the overall footwork of Brandon Moreno is going to cause a lot of trouble for Erceg because he's not similar to Kai where he just stays planted and throws with his power. He will create angles with the footwork and he'll land the body kick. He'll land those overhands, which will even create a different kind of dynamic where even when Kai Kara-France was standing right in front of Erceg, he didn't see that big left hook and overhand land. When you pair it up with footwork, it's just even worse. So I really like Moreno's movement here, and I think it's going to be a huge tool to his advantage. Unless Erceg lands a lot of heavy leg kicks early on to zap that movement, I feel like that's where he could start to find some success, where he could find Moreno, slowing down, not as bouncy. Other than that, I just think that it's Moreno. But I want to appreciate everyone for sharing and commenting with us, staying up late night in the chat. I know it's it is 3 a.m. right now on the East Coast, so
soldier hours.
Soldiers, absolute soldiers, and looking forward to another breakdown next week. I will be doing a breakdown, hopefully, on the show right before I go to Vegas to potentially corner a fighter for his debut next Saturday.
Hey, so, looking forward to it, my man.
Let's
we'll be seeing Wizz on our televisions, Lord willing.
Potentially. If not this fight, it's going to be the next one onwards. But I will be at the PI next weekend doing shakeouts for 2 different fighters.
Awesome. Well, my man, we wish you nothing but continued growth and success. I was showing the results last week, 9 units in the can. Wizz doing absolute big things over there and looking to keep the ball rolling. Myself as well, over 200% ROI last weekend. Can't promise that every week, but we promise the same effort, intentionality. That's what we're going to bring to the table. So, Lord willing, we can keep the ball rolling. It's been a good couple weeks for the both of us. And my man, we got nothing but great fights in the future looking forward to. So, I hope that you guys have all enjoyed. If you have, make sure you smash the like button, hit subscribe, get those notification bells rolling, right? Because we go a little bit disparate times, but I hope that we're providing you a lot of great value. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, fire those off in the chat. If you're looking for myself or my great guests, there's a lot more information down in the description box below. God bless. Good luck. Come back next week. We're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody. See y'all.